is his authority that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman, welcome to everybody. How are you doing? Peace be upon everybody. Uh, this is Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Namaste, ni hao, aloha, uh, jambu, habari, mimi, mimi ni Kofi, Dina Franco Katana Nueve, Aqua Aba, at the San. Hello to everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thankful and grateful to have you guys with us today. Appreciate your presence on all the platforms that we're on. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today. How you doing, Minister Sonia, Sister Christine, Bounty, Keith, everybody who's coming on, Nay King, MCM, thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate that. Hello, Minister Tammy. Welcome to everybody. We give all praise and honor once again to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Thank you, NBA Factoid. Appreciate it. She's a healer. My wife is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A and D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we appreciate you so very much. I also think you can look up hashtag Find Bloom, hashtag FINDBLOOM. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the first, right? The first day of August. So welcome on this first day. August 15th is fast approaching. For those that are going to meet up October 14th through the 16th, let's not forget about that. Still in fundraising mode, trying to get this land stuff together for y'all's land project. We're looking forward to that. We praise Yah for all of you all who are with us today. We're thankful and grateful for you guys. And today, we're going to talk about the Bill Russell effect. The Bill Russell effect. How you doing, Sister Kimberly? How you doing, Mayhew? Sister Kimberly, I do have something that I'm going to try and send to you. I was asleep yesterday, just trying to catch up on sleep, but I do have something for you with some more answers to the questions and things that we looked over that you sent us, just to let you know. I didn't forget about you. How you doing, Sister Shantae? Eleanor? Hello, Sister Tracy, Krypton, everybody who's with us. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for spending some time with us. Pastor Hamilton, how you doing? Need to reach out to you as well, too, sir. A lot of you guys need to reach out to you. How you doing, Sister Betty? Everybody who's with us today. I want to talk about, once again, there's something called the Bill Russell effect. Some of you may or may not know who Bill Russell is. So if I can just give you a little bit of background on him, I will. But in essence, when we talk about the Bill Russell effect, I don't know if there's any official term that somebody's coined called this yet, but basically when I'm talking about the Bill Russell effect, it's really when we take somebody who did a lot of stuff for us. Thank you, Pastor Hamilton, appreciate you. Did a lot for the community, did a lot for us as a people, as a diaspora, and went through a lot of pain and hate and anguish and frustration. And then all of a sudden what we do is the person passes away and we act like that person was always honored and always loved and always appreciated, and we're going to change what is actually the truth about that person's life to fit the narrative that makes a certain part of society feel better about itself. And Bill Russell is one of those people. It's like Martin Luther King Jr. Everybody wants you to believe that they had warm and fuzzies about Martin Luther King Jr. And the reality was that not only in his own diaspora, but also in the very parts of society where people don't like him, don't like us, Martin Luther King Jr. was not loved. Matter of fact, in 1968 and 1967, it was discovered that there were different census things or different questions as part of the census that was put out specifically about him, and society agreed that he was asking for too much too soon. We're talking about MLK. He was asking for too much too soon, and that some people even saying that he brought his own death upon himself. Okay, well, thank you, Lopez. We appreciate having you. All right, and so we want to talk about that today. That this Bill Russell effect, so to speak, when something happens in his story versus the story, a lot of different things get left out, right? And they'll tell you, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was always celebrated, but people didn't start celebrating as far as unifying in this country. MLK's born day wasn't even celebrated fully until 1992, right? So basically, right before I turned 10 years old, people didn't even really worry about celebrating MLK. And today, people still try to tear him down, still on that CIA initiative, FBI initiative to say he's cheating on his wife, this and that, or whatever. And so, therefore, that's more important than even if he did. We don't know for sure. I would lean towards he did, but we use that to cancel out anything that he did. Well, same kind of thing with the Bill Russell effect. So, and he won't get, we're so much into social media and stuff, he probably won't get the love that he deserves, anyways. But, Bill Russell was somebody who meant a lot to the community. He's somebody that was not liked. Let me say that again because you're going to hear all these people talking about how much they honored him and loved him and respected him. How you doing, House of Hoops basketball? You're going to find a lot of people who are going to talk about how much they loved and loved Bill Russell and supported him and think he's the greatest and all that. And usually his life now is just basically based on, hey, he got 11 rings, but he's really not the greatest because he only played against 8 teams type of deal, right? You're going to hear that's kind of his life for most people up until he died, and now people are going to try and add a couple little things here or there. They won't tell you that Bill Russell did things like he supported, and how you doing, Dr. Knight? Like he's, and thanks for being part of the community House of Hoops basketball. They won't tell you that Bill Russell is considered for many to be like a Jim Brown, a Muhammad Ali, a Jackie Robinson type figure, a standout figure in the community. He was going to black children and speaking at their schools, their elementary schools, their high schools, etc., and telling them that they could be great. He was somebody who stood behind Muhammad Ali when he decided he wasn't going to go into Vietnam and he wouldn't accept being drafted. How you doing? Is it Model JoJo vibes? I hope I said that correctly. Thanks for being part of the community. They're not going to tell you those things about him. They're not going to honor those things about him. They're not going to make sure that you're aware of those things. Am I a Pan-African? You could say so. I'm somebody who's about our diaspora, whatever label you want to put on that. But when it comes to Bill Russell, the Bill Russell effect is kind of the same thing that happens where somebody passes away, and because people clown somebody and mistreated them and things, there's a guilt that happens. And so now to cover up that guilt, they try to rewash and rebrand what actually happened to somebody throughout the story of mankind. And they begin to give you his story instead of the story. How you doing, Sister Bree? And so today I just want to talk about that. When a lot of people pass away, I'm not normally the first person to get up here and say, let's talk about this and that or whatever. I try to go by what I'm led and where my heart is and what our community needs. This is something that I really feel pressed on and feel pressure to really speak about today. So that's what we're going to do. And try to honor his life, talk about some real things in his life, ups and downs, and also talk about how that is a sign of things that we're going through today, where people are still trying to rebrand and rewash and re-represent things because there's a guilt figure that happens, or a guilt type of, there's a condemnation that happens when you don't do things correctly, as we were talking about for those who were with us with the early Rise of Bible Study session. How you doing, Minister Select Omar? I apologize, I need to reach out. It's been a lot of travel and stuff, and Saturday ended up being a lot busier, but I didn't reach out. I do want to apologize to you. How you doing, Divine Fury 1? And so I want to talk about this Bill Russell effect. You said from the stories you heard, Bill Russell was one of the toughest men out there, most deaf, right? He had to be. Because Bill Russell is somebody who was hated, and yet he kept winning. He was somebody who was hated but kept speaking out. He was someone who was hated. Here's something about Bill Russell people don't want to talk about. Bill Russell didn't like the media. Anybody who doesn't like the media, doesn't bow down to what the media wants, or doesn't let the media present them in the manner the media is comfortable with, they are labeled as a cancer. They're labeled as somebody who's anti-American. They're labeled as somebody who doesn't fit into Western theology or civilization. They're ostracized, and he was somebody who fell into that category, just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. How you doing, Nick Jackson? A lot of people don't talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when it comes to the greatest players to ever live, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar went from being Lou Alcindor to becoming Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He legit, at a time when, people were mistreating black people, he was considered to be extremely militant. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? He was considered to be extremely off, and thank you for the likes, for the shares, all those great things. We appreciate you. And so to this day, people won't even acknowledge Kareem nor Bill Russell really as being some of the greatest. You said you had a chance to meet him. Awesome. I would love to meet him. I haven't had that opportunity. But we don't recognize who these people really were, because what happens is guilt steps in. People are feel guilty about how they treated somebody, and so now we want to act like this person was always loved, and this person always had certain people's, certain parts of society's ideology at heart, right? And they want to go with so much profundity to ensure that we pontificate in a manner in which we are pleasing the memory of somebody, when the reality is when that person was here, a lot of people treated them like garbage. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? And we're dealing with that. If we be honest, to this day, we're dealing with that, to where um, a lot of us are, getting stories, his story instead of the story. And in his story, he, or the society, the patriarchy, whatever you want to call certain groups of people, they are in a position to where they mistreated legends, giants, whatever you want to call them, people who were great human beings. And because of this, we try to change the narrative. That's what an ideal is, by the way, with the L on it, IDEAL. An ideal is when you do anything, you create something that supports your narrative. And if the narrative is that you're a great person, but then we go back and say, well, you mistreated this person, then you got to figure out a way to cook the books, like we were talking about yesterday, right? Yeah, how you gonna treat by living water? We got to find a way to cook the books so that these people who mistreated us now can say, oh no, we were always there for you. What are you talking about? We always loved Bill Russell. We always supported anything that he did. But Bill Russell went through so much pressure in the city of Boston, one of the most racist places on the planet. Still to this day, people who play for the Boston Celtics talk about hearing things. People who come into the NBA still hear things in the Boston Garden, or well, it's not the Boston Garden anymore, whatever the new version is. People talk about racism as far as if you were a Boston Red Sox player or a Boston Red Sox, a Boston or Boston Red Sox opponent. How you doing? Aha, for real. Jacob Stallworth, Grant Rising team. We're people are still dealing with these things, right? And Bill Russell was somebody who would tell you he never played for the city of Boston. Now you say, well, he was a Boston Celtic, but he'll tell you in his own words. If we were to use his words, how you doing, Brother Cole? How you doing? Black Hand Side greetings, okay. Lori Flowers, thanks for being part of the community. So Bill Russell himself made the point to say, I never played for the city of Boston. He said, I played for the Celtics. He made a distinction. Did you catch that? I never played for Boston. I played for the Celtics. So I didn't play for the Boston Celtics. I played for the Celtics. And a lot of people don't know this, but he never came back. Like, I won't say never, but it was very rare that Bill Russell would show up to Boston Celtics things after he left. He coached 3 times. Once as a player coach for the Boston Celtics, but then he coached, I forget for the other team was in between, but then he coached for the Sacramento Kings at the end. He coached for three different teams, one of which he was a player at the same time. The only person to win a championship as a player coach, by the way. But then he coached for 2 other teams. He rarely came back to Boston because he felt so bad about how he was treated. Shalom, Big Bear, how you doing? Hey, Grand Rising to you, Stephen. Thanks for being on. He didn't like going back to Boston because Boston had always despised him, right? And this is not something that I'm making up. You could listen to the people who are experts. You could listen to the social construct whites media who existed back then and still are around today. They will tell you that Bill Russell didn't feel great. Bill Russell used to throw up before every basketball game. I want you to think about the stress that one has to be under to do that. Now, a lot of people do that before games anyways, but Bill Russell specifically said that he threw up before every basketball game because of the pressure that he went under every time he tried to play for the Boston Celtics. You said you've seen him a couple times at the game, but that was about 20 years ago. Yeah, he didn't show up that often. How you doing, Miss Mac? Thanks for being on. Right? He didn't show up as often as what people think. He didn't like it because he legit, people at Boston hated him. He remembered when he's coming up in the 60s when he's playing, in the 50s when he's playing too, but I'm talking about specifically when he's winning these titles. And played 13 years, won 11 championships, and then all that still couldn't eat in certain places because of the color of his skin. In the North, we rewrite history. But in the North, in Boston, remember Boston is in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, the actual people of Massachusetts, the actual tribe of the people of Massachusetts, they were kicked off their land. This stuff a long time ago, and that was the same place where you had a huge amount of slave trade. That's the same place where these supposed Puritans who were prisoners who came over with a mix of people who thought that Protestantism wasn't going far enough, and and prisoners were sent over here on a rickety boat that they were hoping was going to sink on the way over. You said that's where you are. Yeah. So you probably see a lot of stuff, and have seen a lot of stuff. Maybe grown up with some things that you saw. How you doing, Dennis? Grand Rising to you. You said your son did BF football. We call him Willie Beeman from any given Sunday. I'm sorry, I don't know what BF is. I apologize. I should know probably. What's BF stand for? How you doing, Sister Cynthia? So but Bill Russell was somebody who was ostracized. He was somebody who was hated on. He was somebody that they didn't like at all. And now that he's dead, right? And now, of course, that he married a much younger white woman and things like that. And now that he does certain things to fit into society, right? And because he decided to go ahead and be around the NBA so he could have some kind of income and things coming in, he wasn't doing this stuff for free. Now, because he's done those things, he fits in enough. So we say we love Bill Russell, but did you really love Bill Russell? If the only thing you can talk about is championships, but you can't talk about his daughter, who he's proud of. If the only thing you can think about is championships now, but you used to say it doesn't matter that he won championships because you think Michael Jordan's better than him, or LeBron James is better than him, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is better than him, or Wilt Chamberlain is better than him, or the list goes on, right? But you had love for him. Couldn't mention him outside of an ESPN poll to see who's the top 10 players in the NBA, but in NBA history, but you had love for him. See, we do this weird thing, and we're going to call it today the Bill Russell effect, but this Bill Russell effect, so to speak, has been an effect on us for a long time. That somebody goes through something, does something amazing, does something comprehensive, does something outstanding, helps our community, and all of a sudden, once they pass, we want to rewrite history. But people didn't like the fact that Bill Russell, I want you to think about this. Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, they show up, they back up Muhammad Ali, right? And Muhammad Ali says, I'm not going to fight in Vietnam. They stripped Muhammad Ali illegally of his title. Muhammad Ali, even when he is, even when he's the 3 years he's not allowed to fight, in his prime, by the way, we never actually saw Ali at his best, right? And here's Kareem supporting him. Here's Jim Brown supporting him. Here's Bill Russell saying, we got your back. America hated him. Hated Muhammad Ali when he did that. Anybody who supported him, you think they loved him? But he's dead today, so people are going to change. Some of the very people who wrote articles against him are now going to make sure that they show him so much love on their social media platforms and things today. He said, didn't they alter college free throw lanes to keep Bill off the boards? Oh, yeah, they did a lot of stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that we don't even know about basketball, like rule changes. When black people started dunking, black people used to dunk in NBA games a long time ago. We act like the dunk is this new thing, and all dunks are old. That are old dunks aren't, worthy of being looked at and things like that. Because we cook the books, or people have cooked the books. We change the narrative. When white men were learning how to dunk in basketball, people looked at it as effective and great. When black men were doing it more often during games, those who were allowed to play with white men, because a lot of black basketball players, that's why the Harlem Globetrotters is a big deal, not because the talent is necessarily the greatest talent in the world, even though a lot of them are very much so talented, more than you and I, for sure, right? And some of them played for the NBA before, but people don't know, like Wilt Chamberlain had to play for the Harlem Globetrotters at first. He didn't get to just go to the NBA. How you doing? Is it number one monster? Thanks for being part of the community, right? But he didn't play in the NBA. They changed the rules when they did. Can't come in, even in college. Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, people like that. They didn't want them to dunk in the game because they said that they were doing it too effective. And so they said when they were doing it, they were cheating too much. Matter of fact, Wilt Chamberlain, here's something, even though we're talking about the Bill Russell effect, but Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain are actually very attached. If you know, it's considered to be one of the greatest sports rivals to ever exist. Is it Metellus? Eves Metellus? I'm not sure if I'm saying that. Thanks for being part of the community. Thank you, Queen. Appreciate that. Right. Wilt Chamberlain was somebody who was probably one of the most gifted athletes to ever exist. 7'1", was faster than everybody pretty much on the planet in track, except for a couple people. Could do the high jump. Literally, he wouldn't jump like everybody else did. He would just jump over it, like with his legs, like a hurdle. He would do the high jump like a hurdle, basically, and turn his body sideways instead of doing like everybody else does now. Because he was so big and so strong. 7'1" was the fastest person on his team when he was still like 50 years old. Could still bench press like 600 pounds. Phenomenal specimen, right? Wilt Chamberlain was actually, Wilt Chamberlain wasn't great at free throws. A lot of people may or may not know that. Wilt Chamberlain actually could dunk from the free throw line. Like they used to, that's why they have rules in place that says that you got to set your feet and you can't go up to the line or you can't go past the line till the ball hits the rim and all that. It's because Wilt Chamberlain could shoot the ball. If it missed, these fella was coming off, he could jump from the free throw line and dunk it. Matter of fact, he used to sometimes, literally, there's people who saw him dribble the ball, take like a couple steps back, not have to go all the way like Michael Jordan and Dr. J and I'm forgetting who's the guy. Sorry, Brent Berry and a lot of people that do it now. Who's one of the latest people? The guy that plays for Chicago Bulls, Zach Levine, where they got to run all the way to one side of the court and then they run up and they jump. Wilt Chamberlain could take 2 steps back from the free throw line, like a couple steps back, like to the middle of where the free throw line and the top of the key is, if you know what I'm talking about. He could take 2 steps back, then take 2 steps forward and jump and dunk it from the free throw line. And when they saw him do this in a game a couple times, they said, you know what, we're going to make that illegal. Because he did it in college, and they made it illegal to be able to dunk from the, basically jump past the free throw line. Because nobody else could do it, so they were doing the granny shot. They were doing the free throw shot, but they couldn't do it. Wilt Chamberlain could actually just dunk from the free throw line. Like, he was an amazing physical specimen. So, what they did was they changed it. They said that's too much, that's an unfair advantage. They started saying dunking takes no skill. Now we would say dunking takes no skill. Wow, that's wild to say. But back then, because black men were starting to dunk, they said dunking takes no skill. Right? So they took it out the game. But of course, dunking took skill until there were black men doing things that they never seen before, right? And also there were black men being allowed to play for the first time, and so you had to make sure that you keep everybody the same. It's right, the Bill Russell effect, Will Chamberlain tied into the same time, to where we're going to act like these people were loved, but reality was they were not. Right? They still won and beat everybody. He still became the greatest. Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest individual. People want to say team success and all this stuff. Okay, you can't deny Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest individual basketball player. Like, as far as individual statistics, that whenever people say, "Man, so and so is the first person to score 30-something points for 10 games straight," they don't tell you anymore, but they really mean since Bill Russell. Right? Like, Bill Russell actually had an unofficial, only because they didn't officially keep those stats. Wilt Chamberlain, excuse me, sorry. Bill Russell has had like a quadruple double multiple times. Wilt Chamberlain is the only person to have had what's called a quintuple double ever. Right? He had something like 30 or 40. It could be low. He could have had 50 points, but I know he had at least like 30, 40 points, 20 something rebounds, or 25 rebounds or so. They had something ridiculous like 18 assists, 15 blocks, and like 12 steals or something in a game. Right? Like, this is the people who keep saying these people couldn't play or this and that or they're not that great. Like, this is the greatness that was there, but they kept changing. They keep changing the narrative, because even to this day, they have to make sure that, hey, we can't have him be so far. But to this day, like Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, these players have done stuff that nobody can do. Right? Yeah, they tarnished his name with all the women he slept with. And by the way, I mean, that's not all that great, right? That's a lot of womanizing. His political affiliations are kind of trash, Will Chamberlain, things like that. Bill Russell wasn't perfect either. Being a Republican or a Democrat ain't getting you nowhere. But at the end of the day, like, they're not perfect men. But what I'm here to tell you is that there's a lot more to them and what they do and what's been hidden from you than one might think, right? And we're not aware of some of these things. But there's a lot more to them, and a lot more to what society has done. And this Bill Russell effect, right? These players were not these beloved people. They were people that were fighting on behalf of the diaspora. And because of that, they were not liked. They cooked the books, exactly. They were willing to change what actually happened. So that we would now say, oh, everybody loved them. No. And there's a undertone, right? There's an undercurrent, there's an undertone, right? Just like in music, there's an overtone, and you hit certain chords and you hit them perfectly, and you'll hear certain notes that weren't played, but because the chord structure is so well played, you can hear those things still ringing, even though nobody played that note. Well, when the chord is played as an undertone, you can see some of the things that happen under. I'm doing well, Cash. Thanks for being on. Appreciate you. So here we are dealing with these things, right? And we're still dealing with who? We're still dealing with Bill Russell and people who are trying their best now who are going to cook the books and try to change them. Yeah, you never hear dirt on Tom Brady, even though there's plenty, right? By the way, we know that Tom Brady cheated with the balls or whatever, but everybody says, oh, don't worry about that. We know that Larry Bird, there were a lot of people that were talking about, things like that. And who knows? I mean, people try to make it as simple as Larry Bird had no racism in him. He seemed like he was an all right person. I mean, as far as that, I mean, I'm one that's not into the super competitive person to where they think that they have to literally try to kill, like they feel like they have to kill people's reputation, make them look bad. I'm not into that whole thing, so maybe that makes me not as great a sports fan as somebody else because I'm not a sports fan. I'm not a fanatic. I used to be. I'm not anymore though. I know things about it, but I'm not a fanatic for a team or a person, right? I don't worship basketball gods or baseball gods or football gods or anything crazy like that, you know. But we have to recognize that there's a lot of stuff that has happened. Yeah, Big Ben, of course, did a lot of stuff, twice over, had to pay somebody off because of what he was doing to women and forcing his body upon them. I mean, the list goes on, right? So I'm not trying to say these people are perfect, but what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is that these people were not liked. And there's an undertone, an undercurrent to where people that still are successful or who look like these people are still not liked for certain things. But we have to act like they were always liked because if we admit that grandmama and them, right, were assisting the patriarchy, then we have to admit that people today are still assisting and benefiting from what was done to a group of people. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. Right? So when I talk about the Bill Russell effect, I'm talking about something specific to where you're going to hear a lot of things be changed. Once again, these stories are going to be changed into his story. It's going to be, the books are going to get cooked. We're going to take the ingredients and we're going to do something different. We're going to take out some of the seasoning and things like that, and we're going to put some raisins in it. We're going to present it to you. And we're going to say, all right, this is our version of it. This is what tuna casserole is. This is what macaroni and cheese is. This is what potato salad is. And we're going to look at it and be like, I don't know. I've never had it before, but I guess. Right, we're going to say, see, that anybody can make whatever they want, however they want. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it with Bill Russell. The same thing we do constantly and consistently. This Bill Russell effect is something that we need to be honest about. We need to have a conversation, and we need to put some respect on his name because if you disrespected him, you're not going to disrespect him further by acting like you never had disrespect. You said not the raisins, not the potato salad. Y'all know what I mean, though, right? Come on now. Right? You go over someplace, you're like, wait a minute, I ain't know raisins came in this. I never even heard of that. Or you watch some video and somebody's making Italian food, so they say, but they putting it all on the counter, and you're like, on the counter? Where they do that at? Right? You making pasta on the counter, right? But somebody's gonna say, no, this is what we always do. I'm taking it to the next level. Just because y'all ain't seen this doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Right? Just because you guys haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because nobody's done it like this, I'm doing it better than what everybody else did. Well, you got to give homage to the people that were cooking before. Why are you changing the recipe up and you don't even know how to make the original? What if the original is correct? What if the original is righteous? What if the original is truth? Why do we have to cook it differently? Why can't we just let it marinate? See, we don't want to let it marinate because if we soak in this thing, it's not going to feel great to a lot of people. How you doing, Tone Johnson? Grand Rising to you. It's not going to feel great if we got to talk about the truth. It's not going to feel great if we have to admit that Bill Russell was throwing up before games because the people who say he won championships for them were the very people who were calling him the N-word. It's not going to feel great, right? Because that's people's parents. That's people's grandparents. That's people's great-grandparents who participated in that. Bill Russell became the first black coach, and while he was a player, the only coach to do this, not just black or white, the only coach, right? But he's the first to do this as a player coach, but he's the first black coach to not only be a coach, but then to win a championship in a North American sport, in one of the major North American sports, first one. Open the door to where we don't really bat an eye in the NBA if a black coach wins. We don't go, oh, a black coach wins. It's great that a black coach wins. We just say a coach wins. That's because Bill Russell had to be the one to get beat upside the head for it by his own people, so to speak. They're supposed to be his own society, the own group, the group he was trying to be in. And you talking about the 50s and the 60s, maybe the 70s. It might have somebody can correct me on that. Right? I know he played 13 years. I know he played in the 60s. I'm not sure. I know he would have played his college career at least in the 50s. So maybe he's the 50s to the 70s if you're talking college to the NBA. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know about high school career, in all honesty, with him. But we got to be open. We got to be honest. We got to be real about it. Yeah, and Boston's ran by the Irish, the Italian, Polish, the mafia. Um, Bill Russell dealt with a lot of stuff. A lot of people don't know this. Like, look at Sonny Liston, who doesn't get a lot of play from a lot of people because a lot of people are not boxing aficionados. I'm not really, but I look at things more than a lot of people do. And I love, the story of mankind, what people would call his story. I like to even search that as well so I can find out the little things that are omitted or the things that are true there that they'll give you a hint of, but you got to learn how to look for it. Um, but Sonny Liston, who fought against Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali beat him. He beat him when he was Cassius Clay. They beat him the second time when he was Muhammad Ali. And he was like the Tyson before Tyson. Mike Tyson has said that Sonny, out of his own mouth, that Sonny Liston made Mike Tyson in his prime look like a kitty cat. Like Mike Tyson said, Sonny Liston's a scary dude, and he was. George Foreman. A lot of people know George Foreman from Smiling. George Foreman. Some people would say he wasn't on Sonny Liston's level. And George Foreman used to be back in the day before y'all knew him on the grill, before we rewrote his story and everybody asked if they loved him. George Foreman was a very unlikable guy himself. Matter of fact, the only reason why people lifted up George Foreman, they wanted to see George Foreman beat down Muhammad Ali. And a lot of people who are for Muhammad Ali can't stand George Foreman because George Foreman was in Muhammad Ali's way to become the champion, even though Muhammad Ali won and beat him. But there's a lot of stuff we cook the books. We don't look at things for what they are, so we just kind of find whatever political standpoint we want to be by, and we just say we'll do that. We cook the books, or we allow others to cook the books. How you doing, Ernest? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. You said Howard University was founded by a white general. Yeah, a lot of HBCUs were founded by white people. That's something that I found before. I've never been, I've never gone to HBCU. I lived near one, but I never went to official class. Well, that's not true. At Howard, I did some divinity stuff there on Howard Divinity, but that part of the campus is kind of separated from the university. But if you're from DC at all, you travel through Howard University quite often, especially if you're doing 7th Street, going into Chinatown area, or going up there, going upper Northwest or something like that, or going into Silver Spring, whatever. Anyways, though, that's a whole other thing. But but you had a lot of different stuff. NAACP too, right? We rewrite that history. We forget that the first black president, or the first black, do they call it president? Whatever they call it, first black president of the NAACP, not of a chapter, but of the NAACP, the all-encompassing part, right? The first black president was just voted in earlier this year or earlier last year. So that means every person who was over the NAACP, right, was always white, a white male, up until either 2020 or 2021. They cooked the books, the Bill Russell effect, right? But now that there's a black person in there, people want you to forget that the Carnegies and all types of other people had their hands all up in the stuff, and that's why to this day the NAACP is thought of as something that doesn't really get much done. Still to this day, people are like, "Why are y'all talking about the NAACP? They don't do this, they don't do that, they don't do this, they don't do that." There's truth to that. There's truth in that. A lot of truth. A lot of reality in that. So you've got to you got to realize that once again, the books are cooked, right? Bill Russell was not loved, but they're gonna tell you he was loved. Liberty and justice for all, right? But when have you ever been one nation? When have you been part of this nation, right? You were more one nation under a groove than you were one nation under this American flag. This modern America. Grand Rising Dr. Hall, how you doing? Right? Like you were more one nation under a groove, trying to get to the mothership, than you was trying to make sure that you was actually out here doing things in righteousness with this country. But they cooked the book. They told us everything was always fine. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain who's controlling everything. Don't Just look at the big face that's out there, who's over you. Don't pay attention to the person who's really over that person. Pay attention to the presidents and fight over which president did what for you, even though not one president has ever done a thing for you. Like that musical plug, I'm on, right? But that's what they want us to do. We have matter of fact, like I told you this. We're in the DC DMV area today, right? Um, I've told you I've been several times, and I don't think I'll go while we're here, but I've been to the African American Museum, right? There used to be a African, or there is an African art museum. You got to look really carefully to know where that even is. But I've been to the African American Museum that they put up there and everything, and it looks all nice and everything. You go through there, but when you go up, you're supposed to really start from the top and kind of work your way down. And then when you start up at the top, all it is just pop music still. Like that's what it is. It's pop culture. That's all you have to say that we provided. They kind of sort of talk about slave ships a little bit. Then after that, it's just basically like, oh, here's James Brown's cape that he had here, and here's the car that Ike drove, and here's Jimi Hendrix guitar, and then they'll slip in something for your children to try and teach them about LGBTQ plus using letters and stuff. But and then when you get down to the bottom level, like the level you walk on, and then the basement level, I guess you would call it, then they have like some stuff that makes you go, oh, okay, here's the uncomfortable truth a little bit enough. And sometimes they'll have specific stuff they brought in, like I know they had the Emmett Till thing there, and that was a very difficult thing they wanted people to see. They didn't even want you to bring children or stuff, or they told you if you bring your child in here, they go see some messed up stuff, right? But for the most part, it's not really showing you much outside of, hey, here's some things on the outside, bling bling. That's what y'all did. Here's some rims on the car. See, this person had rims. Yeah, it's like this person drove a 50 something Cadillac. See how beautiful that Cadillac is. It's the Bill Russell effect. Because if we even for, see, here's the deal, right? Whitewash, yep. Because here's the deal. And how you doing, Mike Mass? Even for us who are part of the diaspora, if we be honest, it's extremely difficult to deal with this stuff because then we have to deal with the fact that a lot of us are still dealing with trauma. We're still going through PTSD. Those of you who know about PTSS, we're still going through that as well. And so a lot of our people are like, I'd rather not deal with that. I'd rather not see. See, look, I recognize when I wear something like this, there are a lot of people who see this and go, man, I have to deal with that because that's who I am. But at the same time, it's not. I live in cognitive dissonance, and I've learned how to be separated from that long enough. And then you come with your hair, you come with your clothing, you come with that, and it's not yours, it's ours. But I've disassociated myself from that. And what you're doing is like the Holy Spirit does. There's this term. It's called, and thank you for the love. Now, it's called they bring these things to our remembrance. Remembrance. Now, people think remembrance is the same as recall, or it's the same as your memory coming back, but it's not. Remembrance has a word in it called member. There are certain things that have been dismembered from you. You were cut off from them. And now here's a time in the story of mankind where things are being remembered. They're being brought back. And a lot of us who have learned how to stay and succeed in dismemberment now are starting to realize we're members of something greater than what we've been presented. And we have to make a choice as to whether we're going to accept the things being remembered, or we're going to say, hey, you know what? I know my finger's missing, but I'd rather go through my life without my finger. I learned how to live without it. I'd rather not have it. I know my leg was chopped off, and you actually had the ability to be able to heal me so that I can walk again, right? That's why Yahshua, he didn't say, I'm just going to heal you. He said what to the man? He said, wilt thou be made whole? He said, just like the church during slavery, there was an overseeing of the museum. Yeah. Just like you had overseers in church. That's where the term overseer comes from that we use. All right. Overseer was the overseer, the slave master who would be over you, overseeing what was going on. He'd be right there. That's where that big chair comes from. You'd have the pastor, then you might have like a chair that was really big, and the pastor was sitting in a lot of places. They didn't even sit. The pastor didn't even sit in the big chair. They would leave the big chair empty. And you and I were taught, if you went to church, you were taught that, oh, that's because we say that that's where the Most High sits, and then we sit somewhere else. No, no, no. That's because there used to be an overseer that would sit there, and then he would come up like the pastor does when you have a guest preacher. The overseer would come up right behind the pastor and say, okay, this is what the pastor said that was right, and this is what the pastor said that was wrong. Even in church, you've been dealing with a lot of stuff to where if we bring these things out, we have to recognize that, wait a minute, This is not a membership of what's biblical. This is not a membership of Canaan. This is not a membership of Canaan. This is not a membership of Carthage. This is not a membership of Phoenicians. This is not a membership of Avila. This is not a membership of Yashtel. This is not a membership of Africa. This is not a membership of indigenous people all over the world. This is in a membership. This is something that was dismembered, and somebody cut off a part of who we were and implanted us with a prosthetic, a genetically modified prosthetic, a fake version of ourselves, and said, hey, learn how to use this. And here comes somebody saying, wilt thou be made whole? Will you take this body part back? Will you take back who you are? Will you take back your prayer life? Will you take back your language? Will you take back your culture? Will you take back the kingdom? Will you? Because the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence. The kingdom's in you. The kingdom of heaven suffered violence. They've been whipping this stuff out of you for a long time, and the violent been taking it by force. Will you make sure that those things they took by force, will you put them back in order? It's a question. And the diaspora don't want to have a conversation, right? We don't want to talk about it culturally. Somebody says, why do you mention race? You're a pastor. Why would you mention race? Why not be like Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? He mentioned race because he recognized that you can't talk about this word and talk about all things are great and American values and all these things, and yet y'all's people are treated like they are. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work that well, does it? We can act like everybody loved Bill Russell, but you're going to have to live in cognitive dissonance. You're going to have to live in something genetically modified, where it's something that seems to be feeding your belly, but in reality is killing your soul. I might. They cook the books. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right? This Bill Russell effect is monstrous. They've been doing it to you over and over again. How you doing, Ray Ray? And thanks for being part of the community. And when you realize it, it also helps you to get outside of black and white as far as those constructs as well, simultaneously. Here's how. Like, what if you recognize that Julius Caesar probably looked more like me than he did, well, not in the face as far as features, but I'm saying as far as color, right? But people don't see color, so they get to teach Julius Caesar as a white person because they say they don't see color. And people don't recognize the word white literally means something that doesn't have color or it's clear or bright. You think that white is a color. White is not a color. White is the absence thereof. That's why light actually reflects off of white pretty well. That's why if you get a white vehicle, if you don't want to wash your car that much, get it in the color white. You would think that it would be better to have a black car and have it get dirty, but you see dirt on black way before you see it on white. Why? Because it's not a color. It reflects color. So you can put a color on white, right? You see brown on white, a brown dirt spot on white, and you might not really see it that as much as you would if you see it on black, or if you see it on brown, or if you see it on blue. So that's why people don't want you to see color, because if I don't see color, then I can't see the smudges. Uh-oh. I don't see color. Yeah, so that means that I don't have to see the dirt as well. It's dirty, but I can let it sit a little longer before I deal with it. Yeah, hijacked us off our own land. Yeah, most definitely. We talk about that all the time, Big Bear, for sure. Right? So I don't see color. So I don't have to see what I did to Bill Russell. How you doing, ER? Is it ER one? I don't know how to pronounce it. ER 171500. Thanks for being part of the community. Right? My grandfather could have called Bill Russell the N-word 75 times, but because my grandfather before he passed away said Bill Russell was the greatest winner ever, it means that he didn't say the N-word to him. I don't see color. I can wash it away. Right? You know what? People who see this is people don't recognize that as continues. The doctrine of discovery. We've talked about that a few times, right? What is the doctrine of discovery? In 1452, the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church started saying that if you go somewhere and there's not a white man who's a Christian there, you can take over their country and you can say that you didn't see anybody because if they're not white, I want you to see how this works. If they're not white, then they don't exist, and they're not Christian enough, they don't have souls. Therefore, you can go ahead and take over their country. That's what they did. Doctrine of Discovery, 1452. They made it official, like actually on paperwork, they were doing it in 1452. Made it official though in 1493. Why? Because in 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 1491, they defeated the Moors, and they said, hey, we want to make slaves out of the Moors and anybody that looks like them. We want to take their land and their riches. So in 1493, it actually became official on paper, and the Pope made it official because he told Spain, he told the Queen, she can go ahead and have slaves as long as she gave him some of the slaves she got. She can go ahead and have territory, but as long as she gave him some of the territory that he had. that she had. That's that's what happened. That's what happened. So they literally ran around and they said, "We don't see color." In other words, if you have color in you, we don't see you as us. That's what they did. That's the doctrine of discovery. And still to this day, people are using the doctrine of discovery, not realizing how you're actually hurting the process more. Because if you would, the problem was is that they said we don't see color, and that way we only see you if you tried to capitulate to what we're saying. Then we'll give you a pass and say even though you're another color, your color doesn't matter because as long as you'll be in the mindset of we're on top and help us to keep our finances because of keeping you down, then we'll go ahead and allow you to have a little more than what others have. But people have still come out here talking about I don't see color. But that's what the doctrine of discovery was supposed to do. To where if you saw somebody who didn't look like you could say that their land was something you discovered because when you saw their land and them on it, they don't matter as much as you because they're not your color. Thanks for being part of the community, Dory. You said where are all the slave ships? People keep saying that. That's a really weird thing. You know that there's like documented evidence, even stuff that's down in the water. Even like in Baltimore, if you go to Baltimore, there's a place. Is it Annapolis or Baltimore? One of the two. In Baltimore, there's a place where you can actually see the slave ship that the Kunta Kinte came from. It actually was used to build a building. Kunta Kinte has a statue right there in Annapolis at the harbor. There's like 10,000. No, no, I'm sorry, not 10,000. It might be. Let me say for sure. I know because there's different ones. I know for there's a study that has like 3,000 slave ships or whatever, but it's a mix and match. There were slaves that were made that were indigenous. There are slaves that were African. There are slaves that were black people that lived in other places besides just Turtle Island or North America, South America, and Africa. There are people in Australia, all over the place. This is not just a place. So yes, in the Caribbean, or if they want to call it the West Indies, or they want to say whatever, like there are places like Polynesian lands. There's all places where people were traded and people came and got from. And there were people that were traded from the Americas to Africa, from the Americas to Europe. There's the Jewish slave trade. There's the Arabic slave trade. There's a lot of different slave trades, right? And so, but there's proof of it all, right? But once again, we got to be careful to make the main thing, and not allow division. Let's become problematic to where we add on to things, and not be problematic to where we divide, right? All we got to do is mess around with one symbol and erase part of the symbol, and we have a division symbol rather than addition. It's got to be holistic, right? So a lot of us were already here. I'm part Cherokee, right? I recognize what that is. Matter of fact, I recognize that there were Moors and people that were coming over and having discussions with us. I'm part Taino, so I understand that there's people who I'm also part Shwi. So people who were Shwi, people who were in West Africa were already coming over and talking to people, right? It was all working together. They were working together. We have this thing where we're like, who's right? The person who says they came from Africa, the person that says they're like they work together. You can say all the stuff that you want, but you know what? They still have meetings. Like you know that they wouldn't allow black people to have melanin meetings to come to the worldwide melanin conferences. So black people just had to start having their own melanin conferences, and that's why they're now starting to release some of these things on melanin to tell you what they've already known. But because black people started telling us our own people, so now the white people are coming out. Oh, okay, yeah, well, melanin's real, this and that, or whatever. But they work together. Meanwhile, like we were so divided until we finally said, well, shoot, let's stop being divided. Let's just make sure we make the main thing. You know that there were that all these countries that were against each other in Europe. These countries ain't really like each other like that. But when it came to slave trade, they said, oh, we'll make sure that we have regular meetings. I believe it was in Germany, or was it in Switzerland maybe? I don't know. But they had but they had these meetings and they would come together and they would make sure that they had meetings about Africa to make sure that the land was going to still make sure that all of them could benefit and make money from it. Belgium might not be friendly with France, right? But Belgium and France, they're going to work together when it comes to both of them making that money. So France, you take care of your North African places. You take care of places that you have in North Africa. We're going to take care of Central Africa and stuff like that. And we're going to make sure we benefit from this thing because we need to make this money, right? But when it comes from us, it could be nowhere. I can't remember the place where it is, but I know. But they still have that same conference, by the way, that they had back then. They still have it today. You said the transport vessels would not be permanently moored. They kept moving. Well, that too, and we also know that certain ones of them are broken down. We know that there's some in the sea, but regardless, right? Whatever your fixation is on it, because some of us are fixed on specific places, and I get that, because not all of us, all of us have different things that we need to fight for in the diaspora. Just hopefully we do it as a puzzle piece together, but The reality out of all these things is what I'm trying to say is the Bill Russell effect. It's the Berlin Conference. I thought so. Yeah. So they're in Germany. You had this Berlin Conference, and they would come together, and they still have have that conference. All right, Minister Son, you take care of yourself. Right, but they still have those things going on. They still have those things going on to this day. That we're not aware of what's going on. We're not willing to have these conversations. And we keep allowing people to do this Bill Russell effect where something now makes somebody look guilty or feel guilty. And so we're going to say, oh, okay, we need to make sure that let's change up what happened. Let's change the reality, right? In Canada, everybody, Canadians are so much better than Americans, and they're so gracious, and this and that, or whatever. And Justin is doing what he's supposed to do, yada yada yada. What about, excuse me, what about all the native children that were stolen from their families and don't even consider themselves to be native anymore because you washed it out of them? And what about a lot of those children who were abused as children sexually? And what about them? What about a lot of them who are still alive today? A lot of people who are still alive today who cry because they never got a chance to see their parents and family members again. See, we cook the books. They cook the books, and they say, "See, we're so great and this and that." What about the girl who got thrown out of her window in Toronto, and the police probably threw her out? I don't know if it's the Mounties or whatever, probably not, but the police probably threw her out, and now we're trying to figure out what's going on. That's still going on. What about how I was told how Canadians always loved everybody, this and that, or whatever? And I remember being a teenager, and I was part of this music group, and the only person that was black besides myself, there was maybe one other person. I forget what instrument he played. I think he was a trumpet player. And then there was a girl who was a dancer, and I was playing the tuba at the time. And she talked about how there's no racism in Canada, so much better than America, this and that, or whatever. And then I hear her muttering under her breath because she tried to be that strong black woman. And I hear her muttering under her breath as she walks away about how there's so much racist BS that happens. We cook the books. We hit that Bill Russell effect. As soon as enough people start to die off, or we say that, see, we don't even have to experience somebody dying. We just say something died. How you doing, Sister Kelly? Yeah, that's true. Our culture might be a bit different, but the system's same. Yeah. That Pope just officially apologized on church behalf of wrong against indigenous people. Oh yeah, and that's happened a couple times. But yeah, Edward, is it Ed Warward? I'm not sure. But how do we break through white frameworks of thought to see the truth? Well, first of all, it starts with us doing this, saying that his story is different than the story. And then secondly, it comes to a place to where once again you got to start realizing that you're in the land of your captivity. If we decide to stay in a land that captivates us and continue to stay there, there's only so much that we can do. Like a lot of us have decided we're going to continue to just stay in this. A lot of us have decided we're just going to continue to stay in this. Even if we know it's wrong. Right? Now, if we continue to stay in this because we say we're going to be Harriet Tubman, and so be it. But remember, Harriet Tubman had to escape first. Remember that. She had to leave first and say, I got to establish something to come to first. And now she's not going back to save the Confederacy. She's going back now to go in the Confederacy, to be in the system, but then bring people out of it. Be in the system, but not of it. Be in the world, but not of it. See, that's the cultural part. That's the part of the language or the dialect, if you will, that needs to be brought to the culture that has not been brought. Is stop thinking you're going to change that which is created to do exactly what it's supposed to be. Stop saying this system will become better when this system was created to do exactly what it's doing. It's not designed to get better. I'm sorry if that messes with you something. This system is not designed to become greater. This system is designed to keep zapping you of strength. This system is not designed that you would overcome. This system is designed so that you would be underwhelmed. Matter of fact, it's not even designed that you would be underwhelmed. It's really designed that you would be overwhelmed, and then when you find out that you make it to the highest heights, you realize you're underwhelmed because it still don't mean much to you. You said, how do you free a mind that refuses to process the truth? You can't. It's not on you. Everybody has to have a place. Like when they have an ear to hear, they'll hear. That's not on me. That's one of the things that freed me up a long time ago, right? That's one of the things that allows me to be able to think, in a different mindset. I realized a long time ago that's not on me. I can give somebody all the tools. I can give them all the bricks. I can give them all the cements. I can give them all the glue. I can give them all the stuff. I can give them all the nails that makes you build a house. I can give it to you. I can show you how it works. I can do the stuff, but I can even build. I can even put the foundation together for you. But at the end of the day, you got to build your house. The word house in our culture even doubles for the word family. Familia. You gotta build your own family. That's not on me. Those who want to build, let's get to work. I can give you access to the land, but if you don't want to come through the gate, and that'll help you sleep a lot more at night, right? We still love these people, and some of us we deal with family members that don't want to change, that are okay with staying in a specific position, right? That are okay with not renewing their mind, that don't want to yet. Matter of fact, let's deal with this. See, this is part of the thing. Malcolm X said this a long time ago, and it's already always stuck with me when I read it and I heard him say it. When you think about these people, and you talk about somebody who's got a Sambo spirit, or somebody who's out here, you would say Tommen or whatever. Like when you see somebody out here who's people call it coon, all these different terms that people use. Real talk, and all this stuff that we're talking about, so were some of us. Yeah, I understand the word of yeah, not for everyone could be a struggle, right? So were some of us. If I were to talk to my 17-year-old, just got in the military, knew enough to know that I was going to be serving the commander in chief, and therefore everything Bush was going to say was correct. If I were to tell myself some of the things that I say now, I would have looked at myself in not in awe. I would have looked at myself, well, I guess in awe, but in a negative manner. I would have said, who have you decided to be? What is wrong with you? Why are you against the United States of America? Why have you decided to be a traitor? You weren't born here. You didn't do this, and you don't even know. Like you barely know about you. You just started living this life 100%. You know, a few years ago in comparison to your whole life. Like, what's make you think this or that or whatever? Like, and you know what I would have to do? I would have to be empathetic and I have to say, I get where you are. I'm telling you though, I live free. I don't have to do these things. I don't have to worry about saying that there's no racism in the military and then having to experience it simultaneously. I don't have to be double-minded. I don't have to worry about possibly killing little children because they're supposed to be the enemy. I don't have to worry about those things like you do though. But my younger self, I think is, if I be honest, I think he's so hard-headed he wouldn't hear it. And then when I went through it, by the time I was about 21, 22, really 20, but about 21, 22, I was like, I don't want this anymore. Like, when I try to pray and I try to pray in the name of who I believe, they might put me in the brig. Like they did it to a chaplain. He prayed in the name of Jesus, right? Which is supposed to be their boy. And they said, you can't pray in the name of who you believe. Well, how are we free if you can throw him in the brig? You put him in jail. You put him in prison, basically. Because he decided to stand on what he believed. So sometimes we do have to go through because some people aren't ready, right? But then when I saw that stuff, that was like the ultimate thing because then I had to go pray for a military event, and I realized I couldn't say like I had to make a decision, and I chickened out. I just said, "In your name we pray." I chickened out, and I said, I can't be in a position to where I'm going to be afraid to represent what I believe. I'm in your yard now, yeah. So it took me a little bit, but when I went through that, I was like, yeah, man, that's tough, and I get it. I get it when people are still dealing with that. You said you're on your assignment, though. Yeah, spread the word, plant the seed. That's the mission. Yeah, most deaf. Right, but back then I wasn't in assignment because I was still attached to a wicked system. Right, I wasn't. I couldn't help. I couldn't have come here and done what I did. Matter of fact, if I was in uniform, I couldn't come regularly and tell you that how the United States military is against you and still be in the military. That's a conflict of interest. I was attached to something. Is it Derek or Frederick? I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but thanks for being on today, being in the community. Right? Like I can't see. So like there's people get didn't even though I won't say she's doing what we're doing, But there was a white lady got in trouble because she's wearing a uniform and she's been making TikTok videos and other stuff, and they asked her not to do it because it's part of their policy. Which, by the way, I get. But you know why? Because um, they're like, we don't want you to do something or do anything that people can use against them. I get that. Like they're supposed to uphold a certain belief system. Great men as Bill Russell generate great thought. Yeah. And that Bill Russell effect that I'm talking about today is that he was somebody who generated great thought, yet he died with people not caring about his great thought. Something that was there with Bill Russell, like I don't think people even paid attention to him, but he used to lash out. You know how a lot of older black men do at the end of their life because they don't feel respected, like respect for men in general, not just black men, but for men is our number one need, right? Just like the women's number one need is usually going to be security, to feel secure. And Bill Russell would lash out a lot. He would just say random stuff, and people didn't pay attention to it. They laugh even. He'd do it and then he'd laugh, right? But like I remember they were trying to say something to lift him up or whatever, and he like stuck his middle finger out and flicked somebody off. I forget who it was. It was like during a Hall of Fame ceremony or something like that. And I recognized that because I was like, oh, that's Pawpaw right there. I was like, that's Pawpaw, who feels like he's not respected, nobody listens to him, and when he gets old, he gets ornery because he doesn't feel heard, he doesn't feel respected. Because all anybody could make his life out to be was what? How many championships would he have won if he was in the modern NBA? Michael Jordan is better than him, even though he got 11 rings, but that's all he had to hold on to. He got tired, like a lot of us get tired at the end. He got tired of upholding and fighting for stuff that he didn't even see his own people wanting to respect him for. He didn't do that for him. He did that for you. He was showing up in black schools telling y'all that y'all could be great and don't let anybody tell you you can't be great. How you doing, brother TJ? That's what he was doing. He was showing up for you. Remember who you are. Don't let anybody tell you you're not great. He was doing that for you. And felt disrespected all along the way. Right? That's my papa. That's my grandfather. That's my great uncle right there. That's my elder. That's my ancestor. And it would be disrespectful of me to not give him respect because that's what he was looking for at the end of his life. You know when he before he died, like the sign that I knew he was gonna pass away was like was it a year ago? Was it this year? I don't remember. He all of a sudden he sold all his rings. He did an auction that basically sold almost everything attached to him. Basketball wise, everything attached to him, he basically auctioned it all off. Might have been for charity, might have been for himself. I'm not sure. But he basically was like, I don't see myself as being okay. Thank you, Cash. He was like, I don't see myself as being um, attached to this anymore. And he lived like a quarter, well, not a, well, almost a quarter, like a little over a quarter, right? He lived 88 years, like 25 of his years were about playing the game of basketball. And he said, I'm done. I'm out. Because that's not what got him respect anyways. This is what got him paid. And he loved the game, but let's recognize like it's a game. It's a childhood thing. We lift up things that are children. We don't, but when we grow up, we put away childish things. I once was a child. Look, when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. There comes a certain point, and that's out of the scripture that talks about love, action, right? Even self-sacrificing love. That those want to talk about agape. That's what 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is known as is the love chapter. When he became like he was dealing with that the whole time. Like I'm holding on to something. They didn't respect me when I did it anyways, and they didn't respect me as a man. Now all of a sudden they want me to keep looking at this, and I got my whole house filled with all these things that's supposed to make me feel like a man. But it was me trying to be really good at the childhood game, and they didn't even respect me when I made sure that I brought memories to them. He sold everything. All right, same to you, Sister Rhonda. He sold everything, right? And he said it's not worth it anymore. It's not what I consider to be love. I'm not heard. I'm not respected. He told you before he died. He didn't find it, but that's gonna be all anybody's gonna talk about. And he did this in basketball. He won this many championships. I remember they named an award after him in the NBA. Commissioner, whatever his name is, David Stearns, the old one, whatever his understudy is, who now is taking over, Adam Silver. Commissioner Adam Silver came out and mentioned that Bill Russell was a great champion and this and that or whatever. He's like, that's not even what I want anymore. He sold it. They're gonna change the story today. They're gonna try to get you. They're gonna shift the narrative. But he told you already. I'm done with that. Like y'all didn't respect that anyways, right? He told you. I'm not. I'm not with that anymore. But they're gonna keep cooking the books. Yeah, you thought when he did it was kind of strange. Yeah. To me, I realized either one or two things: either he was dead, or he found that he didn't have that much worth living for anyway. Or if the whole thing that everybody knows him for, if that's really what he loves, he just gonna get rid of it all. I was like, oh, something's going on. But I know that because this happens. Look, I'm somebody that does a lot of life coaching, one-on-one stuff, things like that, right? Well, it's not like he takes it with him anyways. That's a very fair point. But that's what I'm saying. Like, but hear what I'm saying. And for a lot of people who are say they are fans or fanatics of Bill Russell, they're fanatics of something that he said it wasn't worth me holding on to. It wasn't really what I want to be known for. It's not really what I want to be heard about. It's like to show you even more. A lot of people don't know this. Who's the one? Somebody help me out. From the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe the 60s. The one that played with Bill Russell. Who was the guy who was like sixth man of the year every? Uh, John Havlicek. John Havlicek, a famous, Bostonian, had a lot of weird stuff that he's known for saying as far as civil rights stuff. Him and the guy that came before him, right? And okay, amen. So when we sat there, we took talk about Bill Russell, and we talk about John Havlicek. Bill Russell would do stuff like, "Hey, pay John Havlicek more because he thinks he deserves to be paid more than me, but don't tell him that I told you to do it." Right? He was the player coach. He made sure that John Havlicek looked very great at everything that he did. He was somebody that could pass, who could shoot, who could do all these things or whatever. Right? John Havlicek is somebody who people talk about and things of that nature. Him and Bill Russell apparently didn't really have a relationship after they played together, right? Him and Bill Russell didn't really have a relationship after they played together. My face was off. He said he used a celebrity to try and educate children and uplift them. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, right? Where he was going to schools, things of that nature. So, Bill Russell didn't really have a relationship with him. It didn't have a relationship with the guy who was supposed to be like the great guy that they keep talking about, the guy that J.J. Redick got in trouble for, they were saying, or whatever, and he was saying that that person wasn't that great because he was playing against plumbers and things like that, you know. Um, but yeah, like Bill, he really didn't talk to him. And then finally, like the guy sent him a book, whichever one it was. They sent him a book that they wrote about their lives, and they sent it as a signed copy to him. And they said in there, look, I just want you to know I appreciate you, this and that. I'd love to talk to you, blah blah, this and that or whatever. And then one day they met up, or they called. Or no, one day he called Bill and Bill Russell, Mr. Russell, and they called him and he was like, hey, can we talk? Can we do? Or hey, I sent you a book a long time ago, this, that, or whatever. And Bill Russell said something like mean to him. He was like basically like, yeah, I saw it. And the guy was like, oh, well, what you think about the book? He was like, I didn't really get past the first chapter. Like I didn't really read past the first page, something like that. Basically saying like I kind of read it and it wasn't really that great, or just basically saying I don't really care to read it. But they're gonna have you believe that him in the city of Boston is like this. How you doing, Sister Denise? They're rewriting the story. It's a new it's a new story, part of an old game, part of an old philosophy, part of an old government. Bill Russell did not feel that. Once again, Bill Russell said, I played for the Celtics. I did not play for the city of Boston. Why? Because the city of Boston was busy calling him the N word so much that he didn't want to come back after he left. that he moved his house and never lived there and went to the West Coast and stayed over there even as a young person. He did not feel like he did not feel this affinity. He did not feel this grasping and this holding on of him from the community. He didn't feel like he needed to stay there to make sure that things were going to get. He didn't feel compelled to stay in a place that he didn't think he could change. Think about that. Known as this winner, 13 years, 11 championships, 2 as a player coach, won 8 in a row at one point, all this stuff, right? And yet it was like, I don't really see anything for me to hold on to here. Held on to it because the NBA and him had a partnership that benefited him, but let's keep it 100. At the end, he said, I'm getting rid of anything NBA oriented. But today, they're going to tell you and you're going to keep hearing over and over again how he's loved. The city of Boston loves him and misses him, and how if it wasn't for people like him, things wouldn't be different. But you didn't tell him that even when he was on his deathbed. Notice Bill Russell didn't have a tweet out that said, thank you to the city of Boston, blah, blah, this and that. His family put that in there. But he didn't. And it said that he died away from Boston, around with people around him whom he loved. He loved him some Red Auerbach because Red Auerbach saw past, look, watch this. Red Auerbach saw color and also saw his heart. Red Auerbach didn't say, I don't see color. He didn't go into the doctrine of discovery, I don't see color. Now you got to read stuff for what it is. People tell you what they mean. They tell you in their heart what they mean. They tell you in their mind what they mean. They're giving you the game. They're telling you exactly what they mean. It's us that are trying to live by these things that they cooked up for us. It's us that had the problem with this. Bill Russell told you exactly what he felt. He told you exactly what was in his heart. He told you exactly what was in his soul and his mind. Hey, Grand Rising Chill, how you doing? He told us exactly what he felt. Just like in the story of mankind, people have told you exactly what they felt. Susan B. Anthony told you she'd rather give her right arm than to make sure that the black beast could vote before she could. But a lot of black women are going to say she's a feminist, and they're feminists with her. But Susan B. Anthony told you exactly what she felt. Margaret Sanger told you exactly what she felt. She said, we can't allow Jews and black people to have babies. We need to go into communities and tell them that they're not great people, and we need to go ahead and make sure that we have them have less babies. We'll even go to their pastors and make sure that they help us out with abortion. She told you exactly what she thought. And Maya Angelou told me, when somebody tells you exactly what they think, believe them. Or she said it like this, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. I don't need you to tell me 7 times. I'll just go by what you said the first time. Yep, cooking the books, we never know. That's why y'all says seek. Yeah. Seek and you will find. Knock and you shall enter. Ask and it shall be given unto you. You got to look for it. They told you exactly what they were going to do. And here we are still trying to lift them up. People talking about if you're abortion, for abortion, you still here talking about how Margaret Sanger is so great for you. She told you she didn't like black people and she wanted y'all to die. She got y'all to start killing your babies. That's what she said. If you want to use abortion and talk about how it's something that's for your diaspora, then don't use Margaret Sanger. She's not the person for you. How you doing, Sister Austria? Margaret Sanger is not the person for you. She's not. Margaret Sanger would have looked at me and be like, "Ooh, we need to make sure he don't have no children." That's what she would have said. Y'all talking about Gloria Steinem, the mother of feminism. Gloria Steinem is somebody who told you straight up, like, hey, she worked for the CIA. CIA operative. The CIA started a movement. They called it the feminist movement, and it was to help get rid of the black family. Around the same time that Richard Nixon is doing his stuff, telling you that black people and hippies are bad people because they smoke weed together and they started having children together. How you doing, user 821? Thanks for being part of the community. Like, these are things that I'm not telling you anything. See, that's what I'm saying. People like to talk about facts without context and context without facts. I'm telling you exactly what they said, and I'm telling you to believe what they said. Believe what they meant. They told you what they think. They told you who they are. Why don't you believe them? You don't believe them because you don't even believe, you don't believe them because you're about ideals. I-D-E-A-L. Ideal. IDEAL, something that supports your narrative. Your narrative is not true, but you don't care. You're going to figure out a way to cook the books. Yeah, they didn't hide it. But for you to make it work, you got to change it. People still to this day, George Washington wasn't sure how he felt about slaves. Thomas Jefferson wasn't sure how he felt about slaves. Madison wasn't sure about how he felt about slaves. Monroe wasn't sure about how they felt about slaves. All 4 out of 5 of them were Virginia slave owners that didn't mind language being put in the Constitution saying that you can treat the savage and the bond, which is the slave, a certain way, and treat you different, and said that women didn't even have rights. What do you mean that they didn't care? Or that they didn't know how they felt about slavery? They told you, they showed you, they wrote it out. George Washington, the commander in chief, right, before he was president, he was commander in chief. He had presidents over him before he was president, right? But he was always the first commander in chief, because all commander in chief meant was that whatever area of the army for Britain somewhere was in the British Empire, whoever was the head general was the commander in chief. So he broke away from Britain and asked to be the commander in chief. He wanted to be the general over all people, right? So he was the first one for America, right? And so the commander in chief, he basically could have won in 1776. He could have won. It could have been over. You didn't have to have years of fighting. It could have been over because they had black people who were fighting, slaves that were fighting under them. However, people started saying maybe you should make sure that you promise that these black slaves can get freedom. Even if you're not going to give it to them, at least promise it to them. Maybe we should look at them different if they're helping us to win the war. George Washington was like, we can't have that because then I won't have what makes me money. So he wrote a decree and made it a point to say all black people have to go back to being slaves and they cannot fight in the army. George Washington told you how he felt about slavery. George Washington, as a Virginia slave owner, then takes part of the land of Virginia, turns it into Washington, D.C., puts a white house on it, and then has slaves on there to serve whoever's going to be the president. Whenever you go to Washington, D.C., you're going to the place that George Washington put in place to ensure that he would have a place where all presidents could be served by slaves. That's That's what you do. But he told you. But people are still to this day, well, you must understand that George Washington, he even married his wife. You know, some of y'all don't even know his wife was a brunette or a brunette. That word used to literally just mean somebody who had black features. So she basically was somebody who could pass for white. But she was a slave owner too. So you got some colorism stuff happening. He said he married her because she was a slave owner. That's why he married her. She had just as many slaves as he did. So when they got married, he doubled up. You said, or at the very least, get a pill or use a rubber. I mean, if that's what you feel to do, I would think that, you know, make sure that you just decide to have one partner and, you know, be what your body's designed to be and be in marriage. Marriage is sex. Sex is marriage. Even by law, you got to consummate. But nevertheless, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. That's your ability. But what I'm trying to get you to see overall is this Bill Russell effect, to where we keep changing the game. We keep changing the stuff from what it is. Bill Russell didn't do. Bill Russell did not stand for what everybody's going to say that he stood for today. Matter of fact, Bill Russell, the only reason why people look at him in a nice way, like to this day, is because Bill Russell is somebody who fit a very beatnik, a very, what do you call it? I guess Democratic, but I'm not talking about just the Democratic Party. This is specific people in general. I don't know. I don't have the word for it to articulate. I apologize. But basically, this new thing where it's like you got a social construct of people that you would call white that want to tell you how they're your ally, but at the same time want to tell you how you're supposed to bow down still. He fit that narrative. And so that's why he's going to get love today. He's not going to be loved for what he stood for. He's not going to be loved for what he did before he just gave up and said, all right, whatever. Y'all don't care about me enough anyways. Yeah, I guess we could say progressive. Usually you hear that term thrown around, right? Like that's what you're going to hear today. That's what you're going to get today. And that's what you're going to continue to get. That's what you got with Martin Luther King Jr. Everybody loved him. Well, in 67, 68, y'all had census out. They said that he was asked for too much too soon and that he basically caused his own death. Some people said he deserved his own death. That's why Jane Elliott started being Jane Elliott, because y'all said he deserved his own death and she couldn't take it anymore. Right? Y'all didn't celebrate him all across America until 1992. 1992 ain't that long ago. And by the way, his death, where y'all say that, oh, he was shot by some white guy, this, that, or whatever, that's not even how he died. Sure, that helped his death along, but he actually was smothered with a pillow. Right? His family sued the state that he was smuggled in. and they won. They won. They won. They didn't get to win the suit the way or they didn't get to win in court, but they won when they did when they made it about money. They sued and they won. Yeah, he was smothered with a pillow, but everybody loved him so much that they didn't even teach you that. Because here's the story with MLK for a lot of y'all when y'all grew up. Not everybody, fine, if you're the person that got this, that's great. I'm glad that you were educated in ways that many were not. But most people, their education of Martin Luther King Jr. used to be as simple as Martin Luther King came from something. He was a young boy. He was playing with he had a white friend. One day, his white friend was allowed to play with him because he was black. He went to school and he decided he was going to do great things. He told us about a lot of great things and even said that he had a dream. As soon as he said he had a dream in his speech, they shot him. We realized how terrible it was and we became a great nation. That's how most people were introduced to him. And so most people think into themselves, he was shot, the whole country was in shock, and the country just became better overnight, which is far from the truth. MLK still lied on. People don't even want you to know that he gave the "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963. That means 5 more years he was around, and he was speaking on some different things, and it sounded a lot different than his "I Have a Dream" speech, where he was talking about that reparations were mandatory if this nation was going to be absolved from her sins. He started sounding too much like Malcolm. Yeah, cooking the books on both sides, and a lot of us go by what was rewritten. So when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, maybe you should find more about what he thought about us as a diaspora," people go, "Oh no, I'm gonna." Now we go to a place of we try to find all the fault in him and try to say he was terrible and this and that or whatever. Look, here's something that you should never forget about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. No matter if you love him or hate him, that man died, and he died for the cause. And if you ain't died for the cause yet, right, whether it's by natural life being taken or by somebody taking your life because you're willing to stand up against injustice, you know what? You might want to hold your words to yourself just a little bit more. I'm not saying we can't tell the truth. I'm not saying don't mention any of the stuff he said. Hey, look, he used to say the N word behind closed doors, right? He never said it in public because he knew it was something that was bad that he didn't want children to catch on. But he grew up hearing the N word, so he said the N word, right? More than likely, we don't know 100%, but even his wife dealt with it, and she said even if it did happen, she's made peace with it. So if she made peace with it, that's his wife, and I'm fine with it. Or I'm not fine with it, but like that's his business. But he probably did cheat. Y'all didn't care until the CIA and the FBI started putting it out in the public because they wanted you to not acknowledge anything great that he did. But then here's the deal: even when you start pointing the finger at him, then why don't you lift up Malcolm X for the fact that he never cheated? That's the Bill Russell effect. See, Malcolm X doesn't fit into the narrative of be a good, outstanding citizen, a good American, a good white, or a person that good white folk would say is acting correct. But Malcolm X never cheated. Why don't you lift him up for that? Then if that's gonna be the thing where you're gonna say you're gonna tear Martin down, him putting his life on the line for you because he cheated, then why don't you? Matter of fact, okay, amen. I gotta say it. All right. Why? Trigger warning. Okay, trigger warning. If you want to turn away, right? But why not? If he gonna do that, if you gonna talk about that, then why not? Some of y'all got to disqualify yourselves because y'all done cheated. Does that mean you're not a great parent because you cheated? Does it mean you shouldn't be raising your children anymore? We shouldn't look at you raising your children? Does it mean you shouldn't have a job or any income? I'm not saying that we should lift up the fact he cheated, but I'm saying if that's the indicator, statistics show that basically one out of, I don't even want to go there because I don't want to speak anything over anybody's life. But I'm just saying statistics show that somebody within the sound of my voice has probably done at least one time the same thing that you're putting him down for. So if that's what we're going to do, right? Thank you, Luffy. Appreciate you. If that's what we're going to do, I'm just saying. You said someone said Malcolm X was gay. Yeah, I've never seen that before. People say all types of stuff, right? They can't back that up, right? They try to say that he cheated. They can't back that up either. Now, if you want to say before he was Malcolm, or who we know as Malcolm X, right, when he was Malcolm Little, was he doing some stuff that was off the chain as far as selling drugs, doing illegal things, being in jail, being a drug addict, things like that? Yeah, he mentions that. But, his life pretty much is an open book. Oh, thank you. Is it Jeremy? Jeremy Jones. Appreciate you. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Jeremy, maybe. You said they are trying to say that Malcolm was buying on the DL. People are sick. Yeah, they got to show that. They got to, I don't mind people saying things as long as you got contextual facts. But I've never seen anything that's even close to that. Matter of fact, I don't know when he would have time because his life is pretty much like you. He actually, one of the regrets of Malcolm X's life is, and one of the things I try to take into account that he taught us was that he wasn't really having time to even be around anything outside of just the struggle. So he didn't really spend time with his daughters the way he really wanted to. He didn't really get a chance to have friendships and just talk about stuff. Every day, all day, he was out there. So, it is what it is, though. People are going to try their best to belittle people that do things. You said it was a big convo on Twitter not long ago and comes back up every once in a while. Yeah, I've never seen that part. I heard somebody try to say that he cheated, but they didn't really have much to support it. But either way, you got to comprehend that's what the government does. It's like the Bill Russell effect, right? These people died because right before they started doing that, you got to remember that in 2019 and 2020, when BLM and ALM was at their height, you got to remember that both sides were trying to use Malcolm X, or Republicans and Democrats. They were trying to use him to say how he agreed with their side. When Malcolm X said, "I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, nor am I an American," I got sense enough to know it. Malcolm X was the brother that said, um, Minister Malcolm Shabazz, excuse me, but Malcolm X, our brother, our elder, our ancestor, he was the one that said that I'm just because I go to a place called diner and I sit down, if I don't have anything on my plate, but others have people on their plate, you know, you're not anything until you let me down. It's the same Malcolm X that came out and straight up was telling y'all the inner workings of the black Muslims when he realized that they were lying with him, working with the CIA, and they were going to try and kill him. He was like, "Well, I'm gonna make sure I put the truth out there." So it's the same Malcolm X, not perfect, right? But it's the same one. So but once again, if we don't recognize and read what he said, he becomes it, whatever, anything. Like, you have to be careful. That's why we try not to deify these people. I don't want to be deified. I don't want to be made into a deity, a deus, a god, a false elacham, an idol, or whatever. Like, we have to be careful not to deify these people, because if we would just allow them to be women and men of virtue, of virtus, then they would be powerful where they are because they represent something greater than themselves, right? Like Martin Luther King Jr., let's say he's cheating. Like I said, I lean more towards he's cheating, but I don't have evidence in me that says it, right? If he was covering it up, obviously. But I would say this, even if he was, like, him, what he died for, was it not bigger than himself, right? It's like it. So I still have to take that into account. Malcolm X, you know, I say that there's other things you should be more worried about as far as, hey, this guy was a pimp, then he started preaching. Well, a lot of people say preachers just pimp from the pulpit, right? If anything, I would say, like, do you think that's okay? Matter of fact, Malcolm X knew before he started telling us this stuff, because he was so connected and committed to Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm X was telling y'all that, hey, Elijah Muhammad is, or well, he told you after the fact, rather, but he told us that, hey, he's been to meetings where KKK members would show up and they were getting money from the same people, and he was astonished by it, but he never said anything about it while he was in. So why did you wait until you were out? Was it only out of spite? Why would you bring that up? Didn't you care about it before? Those are things that would concern me more. Either way, though, Malcolm died because he was about to, besides a whole bunch of other things, he was about to take our case to the United Nations. So even with those things being said, I still have to go. What was he about? What was his communal thought process? What was he that he brought to the diaspora that he gifted us that we did not have before him? How many people did he make sure became what we would call today woke? How you doing, Lori? Thanks for being on. Yeah, look at the mission, right? He was in submission. But that's just a curse word for a lot of people, but you got to be submitted to a mission. When it came from being submitted to a man, he wasn't in submission, right? Or even we shouldn't be in subwomanship. It's submission. You're not submitted to the person, you're submitted to the mission. When he became submitted fully to the mission, what did he do? And because he was submitted to the mission, what is continuing to happen for us to this day? I would say that he's a success because he has successors. Like, I'm nothing but somebody who took what Malcolm X said and I'm living it living out what he said, right? And trying to make sure others can live out what he said. That's a success. You're not a success unless you have successors, right? Like many of us are successors of MLK. Like him or hate him, say you don't like his choices or whatever, fine. But guess what? He was willing to die for the cause. He did make sure that he marched out on things, getting rocks and stuff thrown at him. He has a whole sermon. One of his favorite sermons, especially the end of the sermon, is like. Basically, like I forget the exact title, but it was something like basically, if I had sneezed, or if I had a sneeze, like if I had sneezed, because he had gotten hit in his neck or whatever, got his neck damage, and they were basically praying for him because everybody thought he was going to die because all it was going to take for him was to sneeze one time, and they said like everything inside him was going to explode and be done away with. And he said that he had a whole sermon where he praised the Most High because he said if I had sneezed, it would have been over. Oh, okay, thank you. You were saying that's the Moorish name, even though he didn't consider himself a Moor, but we know he's a Moor. I get it, right? So we'll keep, let's make the same thing. Whether you want to be a Moor, whether you want to be indigenous, whether you want to be Shwe, whether you want to be Yashta, whether you want to be, indigenous to somewhere here, whatever. If you want to say that everybody has to be a Moor and say that Moors, basically we're like all Moors have to be the same tribe and this and that, whatever. Just be a non-citizen national. Like even if you become a Moor on paper, you're going to be a non-citizen national. When they do your paperwork, you're going to be a non-citizen national. That's what you're going to be, right? But whichever it is, right? Whatever culture you want to call yourself, whatever, just be separate from this system and be about the diaspora, right? All Moors didn't believe the same thing, but they worked together, right? And he's somebody that showed us that. He's somebody that preached that. So if we want to talk about the Moors teaching, fine, like he taught that, right? If we want to say that Elijah Muhammad has, comes from teachings of the Noble Drew Ali and do that thing or whatever, that's fine too. Like, at the end of the day, he lived the life that was about us coming together, and that's our issue. Is like, where is the spot that we're going to come together? That's why we're trying to get the land together. That's why we're trying to grow. That's why we're trying to give people assignments. That's why we're doing the fundraiser. That's why we're doing a lot of stuff. Like it's about like we're in the land of our captivity, and we're captivated by so many things, right? Rather than what brings us together, who really is, like like even if like for example, watch this. We had a whole discussion and it became an argument a few days ago. If you're a Buddhist, right? I don't mind you being a Buddhist, right? But be faithful to Buddhism. Because I'll see if you're faithful to what you say, if you're faithful to what you say, right? You know, be faithful. If you're a Moor, first of all, what kind of Moor? Because we're going to act like all Moors are the same exact thing, right? you know, like we're going to act like the Carthaginian Moor is the same as the Morocco Moor, and we're going to act like the Morocco Moor is the same, kind of sort of is really, but the same as the Spanish Moor. But we're going to act like the Spanish Moor is the same as the Kanab Moor. The Kanab Moor is going to be the same as the Phoenician Moor. The Phoenician Moor is the same as the Kemetic Moor, right? The Kemetic Moor is the same as the Cushitic Moor, and everybody all called themselves Moors and stuff. Like whatever it is that you call yourself, I want to see, are you obedient to what it is? Are you submitted to your mission? Right? Are you, like at the end of the day, if you're an Israelite, that's what you say you are, I want to see, do you obey the law? If you're a Christian, fine. Be a good Christian. Where your Christmas tree at? right? Where's your what do they call it? Your whatever display it is that you're supposed to put on, and make sure that you mix in all these stories. And you have the wise men that didn't even show up till he was 2 or 3 years old when he was in Kemet, but nevertheless the wise men and your baby Jesus and your three people and this and that or whatever, right? Where is that? If you say that you're into the word and being a follower of the way, where are your Hebrew characters at? Do you know them? Because that's the character, what it is that you keep, right? Like if you're gonna be a Buddhist, what kind of Buddhist are you? Are you following the Lotus Sutra? Are you following the Heart Sutra? If you're a libertine, but you call yourself a Buddhist at the same time, right? If you're a libertine, that's that Western, lustful thing. If you're gonna be doing the libertine thing, but doing it in the culture of the sutras or whatever, of the Eastern, what we call Eastern philosophies and things or whatever, right? Even though it wasn't all the way east, but nevertheless, if you're gonna do that, fine then. Like where your Kama Sutra at, right? If you're gonna be into yoga, like what's gonna make you a yogi? The nativity scene, thank you. Right? What's gonna make you a yogi? If you say that you're a modern American, then why don't you worship George Washington? The obelisk makes him your father, right? Why don't you worship his spiritual wife? That makes the goddess Columbia your mother, and you're supposed to be out of Heru or Heru himself. You're supposed to be born out of that, right? Like I don't care. Like show me at least bare minimum that you're submitted to a mission. The problem is with all these people talk about I'm an American or I'm a Moor or I'm black or this and that. Like I look at your mission, I know what your mission is. I've read it. I thought about becoming it, and when I look at it, I see you don't even follow what you say. You don't even believe in what you say. I look at your life. Your life doesn't match up with what you say it's supposed to. Like America still benefits off of chattel slavery. Stop telling me that you're anti-slavery, but you want to be a part of the United States Corporation. It don't work like that. If you want to be part of the United States Corporation and be respected, you need to be a great slave owner. Where are your slaves? Where are all the people that you got in indentured servitude that makes them live like slaves? Thank you, I appreciate that. Edward, Edward Ward. Right? Like I'm just saying, like people will tell me these things. Where is your life on it? Like if you tell me, see that's the first things first. I don't care who you say you are. I respect somebody who's 10 toes down and says that they hate me because of the color of my skin. I got more respect for them than people who will say that they're about the kingdom and then at the same time will say stuff behind my back. Tell me to my face that I'm an N-word. Oh, thank you, Vincent. Appreciate that. Right, tell me to my face. I have no problem, but tell me to my face. Thanks for being part of the community, Rodney. Like I respect you more because you believe you live by what you say. Right? I got more respect. I don't like what he did. I'm just telling you. I got more respect for the 18-year-old who goes to Buffalo and does what he does and writes out a whole manifesto and answers the question that everybody wants. And he tells people, hey, I'm trying to do this because we're at war. And I'm trying to make sure that we got more soldiers on our side than on the other side. We don't want the replacements to win. We want to win. I respect my enemy enough to say, I'm glad you said that. Cool. You know what? You at least told me we're at war. It wasn't guerrilla tactics. You told me you were at war. So you know what? When I strap up, right? When I bring out the chopper, whatever they talking about, right? Right? When I strap up, when I got my nine, right? When I'm ready and I'm nice and tight, right? And I'm gonna make sure that I don't get hit by it, but the Beretta bites, whatever it is. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to tell my people, right? They asked Malcolm X when he came back from Africa, and they were saying all these things. They were like, "Hey, Malcolm X, what are you gonna say about the guns?" And he was like, "Well, you know, black people have a right to have guns, this and that, or whatever. I think everybody has the right to have guns." He was like, I think it was your president that said, "Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition." Right? And then the white guy says, "Well, what about the guns, though? Tell us about the guns." And he says specifically, "Well, when your people stop killing my people, then I'll tell my people to what? Then I'll tell my people to put down their guns." Right? Like we've been at war, but the Bill Russell effect, and then all of a sudden something happens. Oh, we're so wow, this is so crazy. We need to help this community. People are gonna try and get votes, and they're gonna take more of your rights away. You need to be in a community where you can walk outside and you know somebody got your back. And you need to also make sure that we've prepped ourselves mentally and spiritually so that when we come to live together, we're not going to be fighting each other. That our aggression is not towards one another. How you doing on Mexican? Or Mexican? Like, but that's real talk. But they keep cooking the books telling you. You keep seeing your people getting hung and shot and hated on and all types of evil stuff. Children can't even go to Sesame Place and not have to deal with racism. Right? They go into Sesame Place. People are all surprised by this, but there's a whole bunch of stuff like they've used the word nigger, like when what's her face, Natalie Portman, the girl who was on the first three Star Wars movie or whatever was supposed to be Padme. Like she went on there and they were sitting there and they were talking and stuff in the script that was written. She had to see it. Oh, thank you for the love, TC. Appreciate it. But they had a whole thing where they're sitting there and they're having a conversation and all that. And she's like, "Oh yeah, there's plenty of people. There's honkars and monstars and niggars. It was in there." Like that was what your children were watching, depending on what their age was. You think that was just random? That was accidental? So then they're like, we don't know how this. And then Sesame Street was like, yeah, we don't really mess with them like that. Yeah, you do. They make money, they send it to you, and they got to pay for that name that they use. But people, once again, we try to kill this stuff off. Bill Russell effect. Something happens, we try to say, ooh, we feel guilty about that. Let's try and find a way to kill it off and say we had nothing to do with it. The Bill Russell effect. Bill Russell, he died. They're going to tell you all these things that they loved about him, but his life and his words tell you completely different. Go read a book by Bill Russell. We said this before. If you want to hide something from people, the greatest place you can put it in is books. If you want to be educated on it, go read his autobiography. He wrote his own book. He penned it. Go listen to what he said. He told you what happened a couple times and did it very well. There are people who are writers who have admitted that they've hated the fact that his book was actually better than anything that they've ever written before. He tell you what he said. Go look for quotes from him. Once again, he'll tell you, I never played for Boston because Boston was racist. He said, I played for the Celtics. Why did he play for the Celtics? Because the people that were there, at least a few of them, right, treated them like family. Thank you, Akeem. Appreciate that. How you doing? I can't say your name, but I appreciate you. Right? I'll say shy. Right? But that's the real thing that's going on. People don't want to be honest about it. People don't want to admit that this stuff has been going on, and they keep cooking these books. They keep telling you something different. They keep saying, no, don't believe who you gonna believe, us or your lying eyes? Thanks for the love, Shalon. Appreciate it. They're like, who you gonna believe, us or your lying eyes? As if my eyes are lying. Who you gonna believe, us or your lying eyes, man? You shouldn't see color. So you're saying that I shouldn't see black and yellow and gold and green and burgundy and goldenrod, maybe somebody would say. Maybe somebody else would say yellow. You're saying I shouldn't see it? Well, all color is just vibration and this and that. Yeah, so it's a seat that I'm sitting in. So are you saying that I should walk around with my eyes closed and not even have a guiding stick, and I should just hope that I'm sitting down in the chair, or should I be able to see the chair that I'm sitting down in? See what I'm saying? They're cooking the books in front of you. Why do you see color? Why do you see color so much? You're anti-white because you see color. No, white, first of all, you're not even white. There's no such thing as a white person because you'd have to be clear. You'd have to be bright, right? You're not even clear or bright. You can't be white by definition. White is not a color. Then you even get people who do a weird thing where they say, see, Negro, actually white people were really Negroes. No, Negro is one of the oldest, Negro is taught to people who speak Spanish. In España used to be property of the Moors. And before it was the Moors, they used to be property of Carthaginians, right? So you got to recognize what's going on. Like the Carthaginians were there before Christ. 1,000 years before Christ, for those who want to use that as the marker, 1,000 years before him, you had Carthaginians. These Carthaginians are the same as Phoenicians. That's where the Punic Wars come from. Those people said that they were, Carthaginian, Phoenician, Phoenician. Those people were Canaanites. Those Canaanites mixed with Israel. It's the same thing, right? But they keep saying, oh, we don't see it because you don't want to see what's real. And remember, once again, on a white vehicle, you get a white vehicle instead of a black vehicle because dirt shows up on a black vehicle. White vehicles don't show up as well. So when I say I don't see color, I don't want to see that dirt that's on me. I don't want to see that dirt that's in the society. I've been lifting up the United States Corporation for so long that I don't want to see the dirt. I've been lifting up this corporation for so long that I don't want to see that it's dirty, that they had me work 40 years. And I still don't even get to keep my pension. They still get a percentage of my pension. Where they do that at? To where you work for something they say is your hard-earned money. They were already taxing you, and now you get taxed again. People don't want to hear it. So when we speak to this, now people don't want to hear this stuff because you got to mention that dirt. That's dirty. Is that not dirty? That's dirty. Somebody would do you like that. You don't think so? Our enemy is consistently concealing and misrepresenting the truth. Most deaf. Cooking those books. Bill Russell effect. That's dirty. To have you work that long, and then all of a sudden you look back, now you see the truth, and now you got to say to yourself, should I make sure I help my children and my grandchildren, or should I just say, you know what, they'll figure it out? And that's what a lot of people do. I don't feel like undoing this. They'll figure it out. I won't be the person to speak up. But then I'll say, why don't they respect me? They don't respect you because they find this stuff out and they're like, yo, why did you tell me that? I needed to know this. Why didn't you tell me you were investing? Why didn't you teach me about business? Why did you tell me that I had to go get a high school diploma and then a college degree and then get two more college degrees and then get several other college degrees, and you didn't tell me that I was going to go into debt, but you didn't tell me the people that I'll be working for with these that demand these degrees, they don't have, excuse me, the people that I'm working for that demand these degrees, they don't have degrees. Yeah, too drained by that point emotionally to address it in the physical. Definitely not in the spiritual, definitely not in the psychological. Why didn't you tell me that you've been taking these medicines and that the reason why you have walk with a limp is not because you're getting older, but because you got side effects from these medicines that you're taking? Why didn't you tell me that I shouldn't be drinking Coke? Why did you give me Coke and candy and put me in front of a television and say, hey, he'll get over it, she'll get over it, they'll do what they're supposed to do? Why didn't you tell me that that was bad for my health? Why didn't you acknowledge that? Why didn't you tell me that I could actually make my own medicine? Why didn't you tell me that, hey, you know what, they taught me in school that everybody just makes it, but you know what, no, like there's no such thing as a self-made anything. There's not a self-made millionaire, a self-made billionaire. There's no such thing as a self-made community. The community has to be a group of people that come together and help each other. And that if I go to a Jewish community or a Chinese community or a Japanese community or a Cuban community or whatever, they live together, they work with each other, they specifically go to specific places on the planet to live with each other. We as a diaspora, we leave each other to go everywhere else to say that we made it. In their place, they make it by coming together, spending money, and the dollar goes through sometimes 40 times touching somebody who's part of their community before it finally makes its way out. But I was taught, get my money and immediately put it in the bank, let them make a bunch of money off of it, and then hope that I can make a little bit at the end. You said what wasn't taught was to network, which is the major component for success. Yeah, and to network with us. Like on the website that we have businesses from our community where we're like, hey, put your stuff on there. Tell us what your business name is. Make sure that you give us information. We'll put it there that people want to do business with you. We'd love for them for free. You know, like we should, in all honesty, a lot of people do this to make money. We should, as a way to raise funds, we should say, hey, can y'all donate 15, 20, $25, $50 a month, something like that? We do it for free. Yo, please go on there. Please give us your stuff so people can go to kofi-ofori.com and just look up your stuff whenever they want. And some people know they can do that and still won't go on there, even though you could buy all the stuff that you buy from all these people. You could buy it right through our community and be a blessing to them. And see, that's when your tithes and your offering on this stuff, that's when it starts making more sense. You know why? Because if you're going to tithe into a community, right, which is just a tribute, if you're going to give into your community, then that community should make sure they take care of you. That's the problem. You've been tithing into churches, and churches don't take care of you. But right, but part of your tithes and your offering should be, hey, somebody got a business. If I'm buying soap, and this person got natural soap, I should be able to look at all the soap that they make, and I want natural soap, and it's going to be just the same price that I'm spending on all these other things. Let me just go ahead and get it from them. If I'm already be spending money to have Amazon send it here and this and that or whatever, right? You know, might as well just go ahead and get it through my own people. Matter of fact, maybe I should try and figure out how they're doing stuff, and we can network to where we can start being the Amazon and eventually figure out how to be our own Amazon. I mean, we got enough people in enough places. All we need is a few more places. Eventually, you'd be surprised how many people live close enough to where, hey, once a week, something can just be sent from one person to one person to one person to one person and get somewhere. We could easily do that. It's not because we don't have the tools. That's why I said earlier, it's not my goal to save the world. It's my goal to give tools and things and have an environment where people can come out of the system and come into another environment. I hear, amen, Sister Shantae. Right, it's truth. It's truth. It's reality. It's real. Like, these things are there for us. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's that we're not partaking. Yeah, we're not taught how wealthy we are. Trillions within the U.S., billions globally. Like, we're not taught that. We're taught about how much we don't have. right? But if you don't have it, see, watch this. I want you to realize that. See, because the word, I've said this in many ways before, and let's make sure because it's our affirmations month, right? Romans 8:1, you're not worthy of being condemned. Romans 8:11, focus on the eternal and not the temporary problem, right? Romans 8:18, that you do not compare. Romans 8:19, you are the manifestation. Romans 8:28, all things that are happening are beneficial. Let me remind us as we get ready to take our leave today and end on a positive note, right? I think we have anyways, because I believe that if you can take these things, you can start living your life positively, right? But hear what I'm about to say. The system realizes that you're more powerful than what you think you are. They know that you are an ATM machine. ATMs get money, and then people come to it for money. You don't think you're an ATM, so you chase goodness and mercy rather than having goodness and mercy follow you. You about, let me find anything that'll make me look good or anything that brings mercy on my life or whatever. That's your goal because that's what you've been taught. That's what you've been told. Let me show you how much the system really values you and you don't value yourself. You ready? And hopefully like this sticks with you, but you got to be willing to move and make the moves and things like that. But hopefully you'll get this. You ready? This system finds you to be so valuable. Hear what I'm about to say. You ready? This system believes your value to be so great. It's a peep game. They believe your value to be so great that every day they send you on all these devices that you're on, they send you advertisements. Why are they sending you advertisements? Somebody speak back to me on this one, right? Talk back to me. Because I want you to get this for yourself. I want you to see how the system systemically is putting things in place to get you to give up the power that you have. Why do you think they advertise to you? Here, help me out, somebody. Why do you think they advertise to you? You think they advertise to you because they don't think that you have anything to distract you? But I want to be very specific. I agree with you, but I want to be very specific as we get ready to take our leave today, right? And we'll be back on 8 p.m. Eastern this evening for those who want to come back with us. To make you buy, we're getting closer. I want to be very specific, though, with the language as we get ready to leave, take our leave. Why do you think that they do that? They want us, they want us to do golden calf stuff, okay? To get your ATT or ATM machine, I guess. We are their best customers. See, we're getting closer now, right? They know we have the ability to control the financial market if we really move our dollar out. There we go. We're getting closer to it, right? Keep you in the cycle to get what you have. Exactly. So watch this. They're coming because they believe you have resources. Can I just say it like that? They are coming and giving you advertisements. Why? Because they believe you have resources. I just want to make it as plain as the nose on your face. Let's make this very simplistic as we get ready to take our leave. Right? You are the value. You are the straw man. You are the person that you are the ATM machine. They're coming to you and they're putting different pin codes in. They're putting different advertisements in, hoping that one of the pin codes will allow them to be able to get money out and withdraw. All right? And some of us are bad ATM machines where we don't have security, any boundaries at all, and somebody can put in any pin code. Some Negro can come in and put any pin code in. Matter of fact, he can put his in, right? Any woman can come and put any pin code in and can take your cash out. And they cash out on you, right? And we don't have certain boundaries in our life, and we don't think that the society, this beast around us, is up. But you have to have the pin code. You have to say, hey, that don't work here. That doesn't get to come in. That doesn't get to be something that we're about, right? We don't believe in that. I'm not going to give up that. That's my family's money right there. I'm not going to invest in you. Well, wait a minute. I got to go to the store, learn how to learn how to forage, right? Learn how to forage and create your own storage. All the store is a place of storage. You're going somewhere where they did the same thing you could do. Go outside and pick some stuff out and make your own vegetables. Well, I don't like the taste of it, this and that or whatever. Yeah, because you like stuff that you get high off of. They give you that sugar rush. Find out how to not have to be high, right? Find out how not to eat and not be high all the time. And yes, you'll go through withdrawal. You're going to say, oh, I don't like the food, this and that. You're gonna go through the shakes. If you haven't gone through it before, you're gonna be shaking and stuff because you'd be surprised how much sugar you eat. You think that you eat and stuff. When you go to a restaurant, some of y'all that are vegan, y'all need to be careful about this. When you go to certain restaurants, everything that they give you has butter on it. That's what you like. You like butter and you like salt and you like sugar. They put it on a lot of stuff. And you swear up and down, oh, I'm eating something healthy. You eating sugar, right? Fasting. You fast and fast long enough, when you try to eat like regular folk do again, you can't even do it. It hurts. I told y'all we were traveling and stuff, and I went ahead and I got a I forget what soda or whatever. I tried to get it. I tried to drink that day. I couldn't get halfway through because I was my head was hurting, my chest was doing weird and stuff because I don't do that anymore. And I usually have it where it's extremely watered down. Even if I do, I gotta have 3/4 water and stuff regular. I can't have regular water like I used to. It's got to come out of certain sources now. I can't do regular water anymore. When I do, it does something to me, right? So I'll do it if somebody's giving it or giving it as a gift or hey, like I haven't drank in a long time, this and that. But even when I drink it, usually I try to pour it into another source. Usually, not always, right? You can't always. The system set up where they have it where you can't be 100% thorough, but that's why you got to have your own system. I'm telling you though, once you start eating correctly, you try to go back and eat. I used to be able to eat a bag of chips like that, no cap. Any kind of chip you gave me, didn't matter if it was the healthy kind or the straight up blasting you spicy, all this. I can't do it. I can't do it. Not just because I'm getting older, it's because I don't eat that way anymore. Right. And so I'm just saying, like they know that you have the ability to sow into yourself. They know that you could go forage anytime. That's why they send you an advertisement saying, "Hey, don't forget to come to the store, buy them chips. Hey, why don't you come to the store and get organic tomatoes? You can grow tomatoes. It's a vine. It'll wrap around just about anything. I had tomatoes. Y'all see this house right here, like on the side of where it is on the it was growing right at the side of the walls at one point. It was wrapping itself around the walls. Like your vines will grow just about anywhere. We got potatoes growing now. We put that in the dead part of the ground. Like I put it there. We sprinkled some nutrients and stuff like that before we left. I told y'all about it a little bit. Now the potatoes are growing. I got a spot in there where his potatoes are growing. Once potatoes start growing, you can't get rid of them bad boys. Potatoes are just roots. Get yourself some roots growing. Somebody says I can't afford it. I don't have a yard. I keep telling y'all, go and buy some of these $20 tubs, right? Or go buy some of them big, huge things that you guys have. Put it in your living room somewhere. If you got a two-bedroom house and you be like, well, I just had that house for when people come over. You know what? You don't need to have an extra room for people to come over right now. You need to get some food. You making sure that you pay an extra rent so somebody can come over possibly, and you can make sure you're a good host. And I appreciate the love that you have for people, but you can go ahead and flip out a couch in the living room. You need to make sure that you got a place where you eat. That's a store. That's a storage. A store. Create your own store. That's what sovereignty is. Remember, I keep telling people, people keep asking, what's the paperwork and when can I stop paying this and paying that or whatever. Sovereignty starts when you can make sure that you don't have to go and get benefits and privileges. You don't have to do everything. Everything that you do right now comes through somebody else. And it's not even your community. Like I can see if you find you're gonna make sure you don't want to make soap and have to do all this stuff. This stuff takes time. I get it. Right? You got stuff to do. So it's like, hey, I don't want to make my own soap, but why not go to somebody in your own community? That's when your community becomes sovereign. Somebody out there who looks like you is like, yo, thank you so much for blessing me. I'm gonna make sure that you get the best hygiene product and this and that or whatever because you're giving something that helps me to live, right? And then they turn around, they say, hey, do you have any businesses I can support? Well, I still haven't really started, but I want to start doing some stuff as far as cooking some natural stuff and cooking some desserts and things like that or whatever. Oh, for real? Like I'll take some of that if you can find a way to ship it. I promise you. Like I'll come get it. Or what if y'all live close enough? Even if it's an hour. Hey, y'all can come meet up somewhere 30 minutes in between. They can bring the soap. You can bring the food. Right? Hallelujah. Right? Hallelujah. This is real stuff. Like you can do. You afraid to let your yard. You told that your yard has to be pristine because you were told cut your yard down. Your yard grows food. Your yard grows dandelion. That's a lot of y'all who have blood issues and diabetes. You need to eat dandelion every day, but it grows for free. But you out there paying all this money to make sure that you can take something that's killing you because it's a genetically modified product, right? You're doing those things, right? Like we have stuff. People, man, I wish I knew about this, knew about that. Man, we do classes at SOC University. We haven't raised the price yet, and we've had it pretty low for a long time. At one point, it was $60 for 2 months. Then it got raised up to like $90 for 2 months. Think about that. How much did you go to school for your university? How much did you pay to, even if you got a cheaper university, how much did you pay to get your stuff? This is in your community. And we do donation oriented. We don't even check up on you. We trust people, and people have shown that if you trust them, they'll give what they can, and they'll usually give what exactly what they're supposed to, or even sometimes more. That's in the community, right? But you were taught, you were taught in your community to be a crab in the barrel, right, and to bring each other down. You don't recognize, how did Bill Gates become rich? See, this is why they send you advertisements. How did Bill Gates become rich? Bill Gates became rich because he gave things out for free. You guys don't realize he made the software and then he advertised it. He sent it out and people paid for what he advertised. He said, I can do this for free. Let me show you a little bit of it. If y'all want more of it, go ahead and pay. And now people can't, the government don't run without Microsoft Office. Real talk. So now he's the king in a position, and he's a kingmaker. Somebody says they do or don't want to do something in the government. He says, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll just pull off. We'll just pull back from letting you guys have an operating system." They say, "Oh, we can't do that." Let the government try to come against Apple products and tell Apple that they need to stop fooling with people and telling them that they got new phones when they don't even do anything. They just give you more memory. And right, even the cameras don't even work that much better than the cameras that were like iPhone 4s, iPhone 2s, iPhone 1s. But the government ain't gonna say nothing. Why? Because the cloud that the government uses is an Apple product. So let them say something to them. They say, "Oh, okay, you want your memory?" The government gonna say, "Oh yeah, we do want that. We'll back up." They're advertising to you because they're waiting for you to give up who you are and sign up so that you're completely and utterly dependent on them. But the reality is that the government and everybody who's working in all these corporations, they're dependent upon you. The second that you say there's certain that I won't, I'm not going to be in a position to where, see, watch this. Most of us are in a position to where we pay for something. We don't trade for something. To trade means that I have something you want and you have something I want. We pay and we give up cash and we give up time and we give up energy and stuff. People will pay. People will spend extra hours getting all this money in, but you pay. You don't trade. You don't believe you have a value or anything valuable enough that says that, hey, what I have, I'll give you what I have as long as you give me something of greater or equal value. I'm not going to get something less value. You might think of it as less value, but every time I trade, I'm going to get something back of greater value. Really, that's the way we work in our system, right? That, like in our system, if you go somewhere and you go to South Africa, let's say you go to Zululand, let's say you go to Swaziland, let's go Swaziland, let's say wherever you go to see a chieftain, you go to see a king. You never show up before a king or a queen without a gift. You bring the king or queen a gift, and you give them something usually that's established in your culture, something that they just can't find. And when you do that, then the king or queen has to outgive you. So if I showed up and let's say I saved up a bunch of money and I just said, you know what, I'm going to show up and I'm going to give them a $200,000 version portrait or something, or some kind of artistic thing that looks like Bill Russell, since that's what we're talking about today. That person would turn around and say, wow, I've got to give him something at least $200,000 and 1 cent worth. Because the second that a king or a queen cannot give to the same value that you gave, that means that you were actually over them, right? So you always have something to trade. Kings and queens love to trade because trading allows them to show that they actually are powerful because they always have something to give. We think that we're supposed to give away time. Let me give you time, and then you'll give, and then I'll get money, right? Let me give you my money in storage, and then I'll get something that's equal value. They're giving you rotten, genetically modified food, and then telling you that it's equal to your $5. But money's not even real. They're not even using it because it's real. You're trading your time and effort. They're keeping you in the system. Do you have something to trade? If I'm going to go to a store, then you need to give me, see, watch this. I'm in a position in my life. And I'm not saying I'm greater than anybody, but I'm part of a system greater than myself. Anybody can partake in this. But a lot of people don't want to put in the work because they don't see the value within themselves. If I am going to go to your store and buy a tomato, it better be better than the tomato that I have. Now you might catch me off guard because I do a lot of traveling, but in a lot of places that we travel, we have a lot of stop places we can stop. If I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get your tea, it better be better than the dandelion tea that I know. Or even if I'm in a place that I don't have land, I can forage. My wife knows how to forage, right? My son knows how to forage. So if I'm going somewhere and you telling me to buy your mushrooms, well, we're learning about how mushrooms work. So we might be able to find mushrooms that are better and be able to do things with the mushrooms that you can't do. I might find poke salad that's better than anything that you can do medicinally. Matter of fact, poke salad is so potent. They're like, you got to be careful how much of it you eat and how much you do. So I can take a little tiny bit of it, and it could be something that blesses me more than you telling me to take a whole bottle of something, right? If I catch rainwater, I can drink my own water. Why am I going? Why am I about to go to you when I can catch my own rainwater and drink it? Everywhere I'm going, I'm bringing a fishing rod, and I'm bringing a fishing net. I don't need to go and worry about how much meat I need to buy. If everywhere I go, there's fishing, right? If everywhere I'm going, there's a place I can go fishing, and I can go and literally stand in ponds and stuff. Even if they're small fish, or if I catch enough of them, I got a net like about just about as big as my torso, right? So if anywhere I can go, I can catch a bunch of fish at the same time, even if they small. I can have you. I ain't above eating sardines. I can stand in a river at a place where I know that the fish had to go to a head, and I can legit just catch food, and we can bring it back to the spot, and we can eat it. That's how you get out the beast. That's how you get out the system. That's sovereignty. So if I'm gonna trade for that, you better have something that's valuable enough for me to trade. You hear what I'm saying? Like, and the government advertises, not just the government, corporations, because corporations control the government. Remember, the definition of capitalism, you can Google this. Definition of capitalism is when politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by corporations, private corporations, and not the state, not the government. So when these private corporations are sending you advertisements on everything that you do, in everything, on everything that you're on and everything that you do, on every sign that you see and all this stuff, they're saying that we're going to put money out because money's not real. We're not worried about the money. We're worried about keeping them in submission to a mission that's not for them. We're about trying to get them to not have their own storage units, but we want them to have our stores, come to our storage units, and spend money that they say they don't have to make their own. They'll keep on building ours up, right? But look, I'm looking in front of me, mulberry tree. If I were to go to the other side, black mulberry tree. White mulberries in front, black mulberries in the back, right? Potatoes, tomatoes, aloe, parsley. Um, some of the stuff my wife would tell you the name of it. Have watermelon at one point. And I don't know if the watermelon came back this year or not because we didn't really plant it. But my son was saying that he saw some the other day, so we trying to see and look and see if there's watermelon, whatever, right? This is all, and this is all. This where I am now. This is not even an acre, right? But just a little bit of space. You know, we have white potatoes. White potatoes grow too, right? Ginger, like these are things that we could take. Why would I leave what I have and go to a store? But a lot of people are not in a position where they said, I will grow it myself. It's that, and I know people want to say it's not simple. I'm telling you, we did it in an apartment building, 2-bedroom apartment. We were growing food. We took a lot of that stuff and moved it in to this particular place I'm in now before we started taking some of those things and traveling and taking them to other places that we frequent. Right? So it's possible to do. It's possible to do, and we should be in line, in agreement, in alignment with one another. It's possible. It's fully possible to do. Right? That's why I say anybody who's part of what we do here, that's why we make it a point. If you're gonna learn, if you're gonna give and help us to get land and do things like that, hey, how you doing, Corbin? If you're gonna do stuff like that, I promise you, we're gonna make sure that you learn how to live off of what you make. Teach you how to make sure that you don't have to worry about being in the system. Teach you how to make sure that you have your own business. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do right now. Whatever your goal is to be in business, you can go right now. Make sure you get that EIN number right now. Go get your EIN number right now. Even if you're not ready to start the business, go get the EIN number and start using that when you start opening up these accounts and stuff. Get away from your social security number. You can do it right now. Right? There comes a point, and that's free. You don't have to pay for that. That's free. Make sure you're honest and answering all the questions and everything. right? Be honorable. But you can do that right now. That don't take forever in a day, right? And start using that. People start saying, "I don't have anything of value." You got an EIN number. That's a get out of jail free card if you know how to use it, right? You said you never felt poor. That's great. Those of you who felt poor, though, those of you who've been told that you're poor in spirit, those of you who said you weren't attractive enough, those that said these things start with sovereignty. You got to have something that gets you out the system. You got to have something that says that, hey, I'm allowed to come out this system, right? You got to have something that says that your beauty is allowed to be seen as beauty. We were talking about this the other days for our diaspora. So many of our women were told, get rid of them hips and shave your nose down, and now getting the BBLs and doing all this stuff or whatever. And it's like everybody been trying to copy off you from the beginning. Why are you trying to be something that you're not? You have a right to do it, and there's laws to protect your rights. That's all laws do. Laws don't give rights. Laws protect rights. That's why you got to be careful about people talking about we want equal right, we want equal rights law or civil rights law. Like civil rights are civil rights. You need laws to protect civil rights, but don't be confused by that. You think that you need a law to give you civil rights. You have civil rights. You need laws to protect your civil rights, and you need to start bringing them up. But yeah, they advertise you because they know that you have value. They're not advertising to poor people. I need you to get that. Stop thinking that somebody can come to your land and take your diamonds, but you're poor. You don't steal from poor people. Like if somebody gets that, you'll begin to get it. They don't steal your joy. They don't steal joy if you don't have joy. They don't steal time if you don't have time. They don't steal virginity if you're not a virgin. They don't steal purity if you're impure. They don't steal souls if you don't have a soul that's strong. They don't steal they don't steal culture if you're not cultured. They don't advertise so that they can steal your money if you don't have money. They don't steal stuff that takes you away from starting your own business so that their business can thrive if you don't have the ability to have a business. You got to see the value in yourself. And as far as the EIN number, you go on the IRS site. You can get that done. You can Google that in. How do I get an EIN number? Right? Right. So they don't take from people. They won't advertise to people that don't have. That's why Yahshua starts off with the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor in spirit. When it says blessed are the poor in spirit, he's saying those who've been told that you're poor in spirit, he said the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. Spirit, pneumatical thought. That means the Stoic thought that marries the soul, the body. The soul, the body, and the spirit together. He said you were blessed already. You just don't know it because they told you don't have anything. They told you you're poor in spirit. But the reality is that the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. I mean, we can talk about the EIN stuff later. We have classes and stuff that we do on that too, but it's not my focus. I apologize for not. I can't yield and stop everything. We've been on for like 2 hours plus, anyways, by now. But I'll try my best to make sure that if you have further questions about it, you can DM us or let us know, or you can look out on our. Since you're on TikTok, you can actually look up on TikTok where it has the website where it has a link tree, and you click on that link tree, and you can find out more information. But we got to be ready for this. Is what I'm saying. Like you got to have the mindset. You got to have the mindset of this. The Bill Russell effect is telling you that hey, everybody always uplifted Bill Russell and everything he stood for, right? And that everybody always sold into him, and that all of a sudden, Bill Russell had to become an entity to himself, and then he eventually gave up because he was trying his best to separate, and nobody supported him. So he just, at the end of his life, was being in the system. But then he said, you know what? All this stuff don't matter, and he sold it. He literally sold what people said made him who he was because he recognized it really wasn't who he was, right? And so he was okay with just dying around the people that he loved. That's what they said. You got to recognize that don't sell your soul. Don't think that this is about this or that. They've taught you all these things or whatever. And they're going to, once you die, then they're going to change the story. Oh, yeah, we always loved him. We always loved her. Take care of yourself. Come together with like-minded people. Come out of the land of your captivity. Be about something greater than what you've been before. Right? Do greater things. Right? Stop letting them tell you what marriage is. They keep telling you what marriage is, and then your marriage, your divorce rate is at 50-something%. During COVID, it goes to 75% because you didn't know how to live with the person that you've been married to for 20, 30 years. It don't make sense. Like, stop giving them that power. Stop allowing them to advertise their system to you and you giving it to them. Like, if I've got it, then I'm not trading that. I have the greatest woman on the planet. I ain't never trading that for nobody else. How you doing, Dandelion? Lafayette, you said, I'll say it again, sons of the Most High arise. Fire in your hands, fire in your mouth, fire in your feet. I didn't catch the rest. Said creation is, and then I didn't catch the rest. Right? But that's real talk. Sardines are a delicacy in your culture. Cool. Somebody else said they liked sardines on TikTok earlier. But that's real talk. Like, you've been selling out. Like, look, I know they want you to tell you that the black family isn't something and it's never been something and we need to find out how to be like other people. It wasn't until the crack epidemic that 50%, up until the crack epidemic, where they on purpose flooded your neighborhoods. How you doing, R. Gray? They on purpose flooded your neighborhood with crack cocaine. Until then, 50% of your homes plus had mothers and fathers that lived together as husband and wife, right? And it went down during the decades. You keep going back in time, it keeps going up and up and up and up. And during the times of slavery, we still got married. That's what jumping the broom was that they didn't want us to get married, but we still loved marriage and loved each other so much and were so committed to becoming family so much that we, in secret, still got married. They weren't going to stop us from being joined together because marriage is what starts the community, right? The first place a baby is taught is when a mother and father conceive. That's the first place, in the womb of a woman. That's the first place that the baby is taught. And out of the masculine part, the phallus of the kind of the masculine part, and the feminine part where the egg comes from, the seed is one. We talked about that a while ago, right? 1 in 100 million, bare minimum. 1 in 100 million sperm. You're 1 in 100 million, and then sitting there telling me that you can't find a way to get past the system. Of course you can. You were valuable. That's why they traded you. You didn't even think you were worthy to be traded. They said, "Oh yeah, you so worthy, we'll trade you. We'll demean you, tell you nothing, and then we'll threaten you by saying, 'Oh, you want me to trade you? I'll trade you to another plantation.' Please, sir, don't trade me." But if they say they can trade you, they're saying that you have value, and they get you to trade your time now because you got value. What if you didn't have to work 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours a week? What if you didn't have to? What would life look like for you if you were able to feed your community? What would life look like if you were able to teach your own child and didn't have to hope that the school would teach them enough truth that would get them through life? What would that look like? What would that look like if you didn't have to have your child go into debt for college because they got all the training they needed because you had a business in place? What would it look like if you woke up next to people that looked and thought and honored what you honored and looked like you and talked like you? Oh, okay, black man, thank you for the reference. How you doing, Akima? Thanks for being part of the community. What would that look like? What would it look like if you were able to look like you and you didn't see people do this whole thing, "Oh yeah, we get haircuts, this is our culture," and stuff like that. No, the haircuts you get is because the white people said they don't hire you if you look like this. The same places that you got to get a haircut, they don't have to get a haircut. You got to wear a suit and tie. In their culture, the tie is something that comes from the place, like they're wearing their armor. Like, they wear the tie because in times of war, if somebody got their neck cut, they would tie something around to keep it together. That's why a power tie is red. It represents blood. They used to use the handkerchief and they used to use the cuffs, the cuffs that used to be more frilly and stuff. They used that to be able to hide drugs and things inside of it. And also because they were more feminine, they like to be able to do things like this and walk around. They wore the rings that they wore, the rings that you like to make sure that you showing that are gaudy and everything. You can, but in their culture, they wore the rings because they wanted you to kiss them because they were over you, right? They put the belt together because initially what the belt was for was that they used to wear the tunics and stuff like we did, right? And they used to have these things go down and sort of make sure that they could be in battle and stuff, especially when they had chain metal, that they have a tunic under so that chain metal wouldn't chafe. You would have those things that are on you or whatever to ensure that they were tight and they were tied together. We say put on the belt of truth, right? Tie around your gird around your loins, right? The belt of truth. right? But they put all the stuff that you're wearing is battle armor. The second that you begin to realize you have value, you put on a different set of armor. Because I fight a different thing. I fight a different fight. The high heels were made by Greco-Romans because they were into what? They were into goat-like behavior, and they like messing with little boys. So they had them dressed up, and they put on high heels so they would look more like goat hooves. Why are you wearing high heel shoes? I know some women gonna say, "I'm still gonna wear my high heels." Do what you do, right? Do what you do, baby girl. I'm just trying to tell you, you wearing something that you don't even realize what's connected to it. That's why your ovaries and stuff be having issues and stuff when you get older. You don't even realize it's because of the position you're putting yourself in, putting your torso in that it's not supposed to be in, but you got to do weird stuff because it wasn't designed for you. It was designed for a male. I'm just saying. So if you're going to wear it, please don't wear it so much that you're going to mess your body up. And then somebody be like, I made it through. Okay, fine. You're the one that makes it through. There's a whole bunch that don't. You're wearing a uniform. You don't even realize it. Why do you salute like this? You salute like this because there used to be something to where, hey, they used to kill each other, and they would use people that were close to the leaders of the generals and things like that. So you salute. They started saluting like this, and now we put it like this because it's a little sharper. But it used to be like this because they wanted to make sure that you didn't have a weapon in your hand. You're wearing somebody's uniform. You're wearing somebody's culture. It starts with culture every day. Yeah, pleasure, not business. Yeah, they even have high. I mean, you don't have to. You can wear the flats, but in the military, they got high heel pumps. And a lot of girls are like, well, I want to be feminine, especially back in the day when they had even more strict things for females. So you could go ahead and wear it. But then everything you're doing is somebody's culture. Sometimes somebody present it to you. The reason why, well, a lot of people don't know the reason why, like, I don't mind from time to time putting my leg like this, but the reason why some people put their leg all the way over and hold it like this is because a lot of people who aren't eating correctly, when they're not eating correctly, they had hard times with being able to hold their stuff coming out their bowels, so they would sit in a certain position. So now that same thing that people saw, they saw their parents do, has just been passed down generation to generation to generation to generation to generation, and you don't even know. Like, there's value in all this stuff, but there's also value in having your own culture. Very last thing we'll say that I really got to take my leave. Get ready for the meetup for those we'll be meeting up with, and we hope that you guys have a great day. We'll be back on 8 p.m. Eastern New York time later on. But let me end by saying this to show you how you need to make sure that you know exactly what's happening, and you need to study why it's happening, and you see generational curses are happening, or DNA memory, or whatever you want to call it. We're having the sins or the shortcomings. Sin just means missing the target or missing the mark. So we're missing the mark because of what our ancestors have gone through, and we keep doing it. But watch this. Here we go. You ready? I've said this before, so people who've heard me say this before, please allow me to say it one more time. I appreciate you. Um, there was a man who was married to his wife. His wife kept making chicken, but whenever she made the chicken, she would cut it in half. This messed with him a little bit because he never seen anybody cut a chicken in half before they put it in the oven. He never really seen anybody cut a whole chicken in half. He's never really seen anybody strip a chicken when they get ready to make something. So he asked her, he says, why do you cut the chicken in half before you put it in the oven? She said, I don't know. I do it because my mother did it. She taught me how to cook, so I cook how she cooks. But I've never really asked. Bet. Family get together happens. No problem. Hey, her mother's there. Hey, Mom, your daughter, when she makes the chicken, she cuts it in half before she puts it in the oven. She said she didn't know why she did it. I asked her, she said, well, it's just because you did it. Could you tell me why you used to cut the chicken in half? She said, baby, I don't know. It's because my mama did it. Okay, bet. Here come Thanksgiving. Now, I don't do Thanksgiving no more, but this family did. And so they said, hey. So they come together, all the women are participating, they're about to get ready to cook. He says, hey, ladies, I know I'm not supposed to come in the kitchen, but just real quick question, right? Big Mama, I asked your daughter why she cuts the chicken in half, right? And she said she don't know she do it because you do it. And then I asked your daughter why she does it, and she said she didn't know she did it because your daughter did it. I'm asking you, is it all right? Can you please tell me why you cut the chicken in half? She said, baby, in all honesty, I just cut the chicken in half because my mama did it. But all praise to the Most High, not for the holiday, but for the fact that he was able to get an answer because they still do Christmas. And so Christmas celebration comes up and Medea is around. And so they're in the kitchen, but he can't take it. He says, I got to get an answer. I'm done with this. This might be my only opportunity. We ain't really supposed to roll in in the kitchen while they preparing stuff. We supposed to be doing our thing out here and watching sports and trading gifts and all this stuff. But you know what? Whatever. I'm going in there. He busts in there. He says, look, ladies, I'm sorry, but I really got to know. He said, Medea, please forgive me. But look, I asked my wife, I asked your great granddaughter, hey, why do you cut the chicken in half when you put it in the oven? She said she didn't know because it was her mother did it. So I asked your granddaughter. She said she didn't know why she did it. She said she did it because your daughter did it. I asked your daughter. She said she didn't know why she did it. She did it because you did it. Can you please, Medea, please tell me why you cut the chicken in half before you put it in the oven? She said, baby, because when I was around, chickens weren't that big. I'm sorry, ovens weren't that big. So she said, since ovens weren't that big, I had to cut the chicken in half to make sure that we could cook it. And so from that point on, every generation after that was cutting chicken in half, not because it was necessary, not because it was righteous, not because it was or not because it was something that was going to feed anybody different. They cut it in half. Why? Because they saw somebody do it. The question is not whether or not we see somebody do it, and we need to stop at that. We need to start asking ourselves why. But there's some stuff we still rolling around with that doesn't make sense because we saw a lot of people and still seeing a lot of people going through chattel slavery, right? Trying to figure out Reconstruction, being, manhandled. I'll say it like that. Being messed with when they were little children, still dealing with PTSD. It's not a natural thing to pull out a belt and beat the brakes off your child just because you saw it doesn't mean that's the best. I'm not saying you can't spank them, but dang it, like spanking them to where they can't sit down for a week and telling them that you take pride. People literally changing their clothes because they don't want to get their clothes messed up because they know they're about to really whoop this child behind. So they make sure they take their clothes off, right? Or put on a different type of clothing so that they can move better. I mean, people doing wild stuff out here because you saw somebody do it. The Bill Russell effect. They're gonna tell you that everybody always loved this and that or whatever, and you still gonna be trying to figure out, well, if everybody was in love with it, then why are we still dealing with this and that or whatever? Why can't black people be owners in the NBA? Why is the money still in one part? This and that, whatever. You're gonna hear a bunch of stuff today that's gonna be like, oh, we always loved Bill Russell. No, you didn't, right? Don't be somebody who's gonna cut the chicken today and eat it based off of what they're gonna tell you. When the reality is that that's not how the ovens were. That's not how the culture was. And that's not how Bill Russell moved. Amen. Yeah, we don't want to question tradition, but we must return to truth, not tradition, right? I'll carry tradition all day, every day, right? But it got to be based in contextual facts, right? I'm done with following instead of like paying taxes is a tradition, but you don't have to if your paperwork is right. I'm done with doing something I don't have to worry about. Somebody, thinking that they can overcharge me on my property, even though I'm not even here to use water. But they're gonna tell me that they're gonna charge me too much in it. Like those days are done. Like, okay, fine, I'm gonna tell you that I don't agree with this, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go to your bosses, and your bosses who are over the water company, they're gonna come to you, and you're gonna lose your job. I'm gonna give you an opportunity. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen, but I'm the master, right? And you are the public servant. And if you're not gonna serve me correctly, right? Because you're a public company, I'm a private citizen. If you're gonna come and mess with me as a private citizen, I'm gonna treat you as such. The days where we just go ahead and get fleeced, we don't do that no more. You must live differently, though. You must live differently. Right. That being said, thank you guys, though. We appreciate the King Queen, each and every one of you. Those in the DMV, hopefully we see you guys very soon. And then after that, we'll be trying to make our way up to Philly. And hopefully we'll see some of you up there. We're trying our best to make sure that we added everybody to each place we're going and put you on the Google Calendar. So hopefully you'll see of all these different things. I also realized too that I guess if you don't have the Google Calendar app, it says that you can't see the events apparently. So if I see a dot next to your name on there, I'm gonna try to remember to maybe set something up for you where we can send you a specific email and things as well, or a text or something like that. But if we need to have your information, we got to have you on there to know what's going on. All right. But I'm gonna go ahead and take my leave. Get ready to go, get a little bit of exercise and stretching and stuff in, prepare my mind so we can get ready to be on these highways and byways a little bit. Praise God. My wife got us settled to where we won't immediately be going to Philly tonight, so we'll be able to rest and relax a little bit before we head to Philly. But we plan on saying hello to everybody. Hopefully, August 2nd. If not, maybe we can move it to the 3rd. But hopefully on August 2nd, we'll be able to say, or no, I'm sorry, hopefully on August 3rd, rather, we'll be able to see everybody up in Philly. If not, maybe we move it to the 4th. But hopefully on August 3rd, we'll be able to see everybody there. And that's what, Wednesday? Yeah, if you're in the DMV, we're hoping to see you guys today. We put the address on there. Um, I forget the name of the park, but we have the address on there. We tried to make it somewhat in between. I'm not sure if it's exactly in between, but we tried to make it somewhat in between Bmore and DC, since we couldn't do DC and Bmore separate because of our schedules and stuff. And we got some stuff going on with family. We're traveling as a unit, so there's a lot of us rolling together. So hopefully you guys will be able to say hello to us, and we be able to see you today. We look forward to talking to you guys. H-Town, we on our way. Tennessee, we're not gonna do like a meetup, but we're on our way. So we're gonna look and say hello to a couple people there. I'm gonna try to reach out to somebody today to see about the main reason we're coming. Rawlins, Wyoming, if you're in that area. I guess Colorado can be. We got people in Colorado there. Maybe, Nevada, not really close to there. Hours. That's a long way, but we're gonna try and be down there. And San Fran, we on the way too. Hopefully, those of you who are gonna be in the meetup with us for Convocation, we're gonna do that in Detroit. I don't care how this year, because of the way we set it up. I don't care how many people are coming and not coming. If it just be two of us, obviously gonna be more. But I'm just saying, even if it just be two of us, we coming. So we hope to see y'all October 14th through the 16th. If you need to let us know about donations and all that, August 15th, right around the corner. At least talk to us, holler at us, so we can make sure this stuff is in there. I'm making sure, as per our folk in project management that want me to be more strict on certain things. We do have to be strict as far as certain dates, but we can help out if necessary. So let us know, and we'll do everything that we can. Okay, so we appreciate you guys. We honor you. Please come out for the Feast of Tabernacles. Please, ma'am, please, sir. Also pray for Minister Tamara, who's going to be taking over for our Shabbat Shalom services on the podcast on this Saturday for the month of August. We're excited about that. This is the first Friday of August coming up. Was that August the 5th, I believe? So please, ma'am, please, sir, on August the 5th, go out in the community. Bless somebody. Every first Friday of the month, we try to go out and be a blessing to somebody. If you know somebody needs clothes, food, shoes, a hug, a call, whatever, be of service to somebody. We want this to be something that's a normalcy in our lives. We look forward to seeing you guys very soon. So thank you so much. We continue to keep us in prayer and lift it up. Also, my born day is coming up. So I don't really do born day celebrations, but I'll be turning 40 years old. And why not, right? So I'm not going to be in charge of it. Alma's going to make sure she looks over and everything. But those who are interested, it's going to be a virtual thing, But if we're in a specific place come October 6th, and y'all want to come and say hello, y'all can do that too. But I'm turning 40 this year, so why not? Praise y'all for it. So y'all want to be part of that? Let us know, or whatever, or let Alma know. I'm not supposed to be in it, I guess. But we appreciate you guys. We're thankful for you. We look forward to all these things that are coming on. And all these blessings that are happening. We're looking forward to the land coming about soon. We're going to have some people that we're going to be sending some stuff to soon. We have people in place to make sure that people are aware of the fundraising and stuff, but also we'll have some people that are going to start looking up certain places for a particular state we're looking at that we talked about on the last meeting that we had. So you guys be ready for that very soon as well. But we thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you guys. Thank you for your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, your prayers, your gifts that you're using to make this world a better place. Even those who give donation, offering, and yes, some people even give tithe. We're thankful for you guys. Don't allow the Bill Russell effect to get you out of pocket. We appreciate you, and we look forward to talking to you guys very soon. So we thank you guys again. We honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Alma, who's on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. She does have a new tincture for this month, and I've tried it, but since she's resting right now, I'm not going to ask her to say what it is. But we'll make sure that we have that hopefully by this evening for you all. She has many different tinctures, though, to help and things like that. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you. We look forward to talking to you guys very soon. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it, Shalom Yashvil, Kwam Yashvil, Tada, Baba Kasha. And we look forward to talking to you guys very soon. And please keep Minister Anais in prayer, as always. And please keep our brother who lost his father in prayer as well. We talk to you guys soon. Aloha. Adios. Ciao. Shalom. Peace.